law, science, economics, history, family, social issues, education, religion, government, or national security. Brannon brings the issues of the day into clear focus through the lens of a Judeo-Christian worldview. And now, here is your host, Brannon Howse.
And welcome to the broadcast on this Tuesday evening, September 16th, 2025. Woo, we have so much to get to tonight. How about this? Are you aware of who are the armed queers of Salt Lake City? Who are the armed queers of Salt Lake City? Look at that. Queer resistance, the Qs with a hammer and sickle. Woo. Why on earth would this group be so militant? Well, they have 6 principles. We'll go through them tonight. And when you do, it reads just like the Communist Manifesto. I also want to read to you tonight from the book by my dear friend who's been in studio with us a couple times, Erwin Lutzer, his book, Hitler's Cross. Hitler's Cross. How is it that the Nazis, Hitler, were able to get young men to carry out such barbaric, murderous actions? By searing their conscience. By the way, you talk about this group, armed queers. That's what they call themselves, folks. They admit to being Marxist. Well, did you know they also recently, some of them went to Cuba? Now, I bring them up tonight because some groups are looking into them to see if they have anything to do with having any kind of foreknowledge. I'm not accusing them of doing anything or having anything to do with Charlie Kirk and his death. But apparently some people are asking, did they have any foreknowledge or any of their people? And that all led us to finding out about armed queers of Salt Lake City. And I knew right away, because I have a wonderful library, that the whole issue of the queers and transgenders came up in this book by Erwin Lutzer. And do you know that Hitler was surrounded by a lot of queers, transgenders? Yeah, even his own personal secretary. His own personal secretary was known as a cross-dresser, Hitler's own personal secretary. Why do I bring this up? Because you have to have people, I think, who have a conscience that's been greatly diminished or even severed. Their conscience seared, as with a hot iron, as the Bible talks about. To be involved in, well, really, what so many of them are talking about, coming after people who they say are oppressing them. Is it the Christians that are oppressing them? Is it the Christians and the capitalists? If so, why do they think that? And then some of them went to Cuba recently. Really? None of this was on the FBI warning list? Oh, wait a minute. You're going to find out this apparently wasn't on the FBI's list because the FBI, according to U.S. Senator Charles Grassley today, the FBI was busy following conservative groups like Charlie Kirk's Turning Point USA. You mean the FBI was tracking on Charlie Kirk's group? Well, I guess they don't have time to worry about the armed queers going to Cuba. And what are they learning over there in Cuba? And what's the truth about what's really going on in Cuba versus what, well, the propaganda says? We're going to hear from my friend, the late Ron Carlson, tonight on that. I'm then going to be interviewing and having with me tonight my buddy, Mark Mitchell of Rasmussen, the lead pollster, who'll be a part of our keynote speaking group at our Worldview Weekend coming up Friday night, October 3rd, Saturday, October 4th, here in beautiful and safe Collierville, Tennessee. I've been living here 21 years almost. I feel safe. Memphis is 30 minutes away, not in Memphis. Okay. Memphis is getting better, though, just since January 1st. And it's going to get a lot better when the National Guard gets here and starts cracking down on crime, international drug cartels, etc. But if you'd like to join us, Friday night, October 3rd, Saturday, October 4th, Mark Mitchell will be here, along with Gordon Chang and so many others. You can register and still join us in person with a ticket at worldviewstore.com. Worldviewstore.com, the optional concert, banquet, and keynote address by Hadian is also Thursday night. All of it's at worldviewstore.com. If you can't be with us, you can live stream it at any level of membership. Live stream it, worldviewtube.com/vault, worldviewtube.com/vault. But Mark's going to join me tonight. I want to talk about this. This is a group known as the National Contagion Research Institute. They did a report in April of this year, and you know what it says? There's way too many percentages here, high percentages. 50 to 56%, at least somewhat, justify murder of Elon Musk and President Trump, respectively. What is going on? Are we headed for a civil war? I think we're already in a civil war. The left knows we're in a civil war. They've already taken it hot on more than one occasion. How many Christians have been killed in churches in America? How many Christians have already been murdered in their worship services, in their churches in America? Let's not forget the little children and teachers murdered at a Christian school in Nashville by a transgender. Hasn't the Civil War already gone hot when it comes to the left? The right, thankfully, hasn't taken the bait, but boy, they want the right out in the street fighting them. They do. I think that's exactly what they want. I think the Civil War has already started for the left. Are we headed towards civil war? Are we headed to a fourth turning? What are the polls and surveys showing us? What about the government? Do the American people trust the government? What about Kash Patel? He testified today there's over 20 groups they're looking at that may have had foreknowledge of this. Why couldn't you guys catch them? I thought the whole purpose of the Patriot Act was to surveil all of us and stop crime and terrorism. But I'm sorry, apparently you're just surveilling even still today, the conservatives. Do you really trust the current FBI? Have you seen a bunch of people fired? Have you seen a complete gutting? I've seen a few fired, but there's way too many people in this government still that are, I think, subversive. We're going to talk to Mark Mitchell about that. And then we're going to be joined by Shahram Hadian to discuss some of the issues I've already mentioned, and that includes the queers, the armed queers, the militant armed queers, and so much more. And then finally, we'll be joined tonight for a brief interview with my friend Anni Cyrus, who has a brand new article out, Utah bomb plot, Muslims, anti-Trump, and a motive called unknown. Did you know about that? I mentioned it in the Worldview Report tonight. So we got a lot to get to. Now, before we do, folks, let me remind you, one way you can support us and your health is by daily taking great things like Galatana. It's a phytoplankton. By the way, it keeps Dolly's teeth really white. Go look up phytoplankton for dogs' teeth. Now, I give her half a scoop every day on her food in the morning, the pet product at melissahousegpa.com. But I, as you know, because I drink it here a lot of nights on the air, I drink this every day. One little scoop is the equivalent of 20 billion plant cells. By the way, remember the guy that came up with this? Had a terminal case of cancer. He started taking this, lived another 10 years. His 11 biopsies came back benign. Not making claims, just telling you the truth. Gets right down to the cellular level to feed your mitochondria. And so many nutrients, all natural, nothing man-made added to this phytoplankton. And if you can boost your immune system, guess what? Your immune system can really take on a lot of the toxins and maybe cancer cells and other things. Don't you think your immune system is able to take care of that if you have a good boosted immune system? Food is medicine. Food as medicine. Feed and raise your immune system to do what it's designed by God to do. And this is an all-natural way to do it. There are like 5 clinical trials behind this. I just like the fact that the science is behind it with all the nutrients and great things in it to boost your immune system. Dolly, you want to come up and say good evening? Hello to everybody? Come here. Where'd you go? Come on over here. Come on up. What do you got? Come on up. Oh, looky there. You have somebody's shoe. Okay, that's not a good thing. Can we have that? I mean, you really aren't supposed to be chewing shoes, are you? You just wanted to stop by and say hello? All right, it's good to see you. All right, let me finish this up so we can get going. And then, of course, every day I also take my Bella Grace. That's at Melissa House, BG, Melissa House, BG. 80 clinical trials behind this powerful elixir. Look at that hair growth, no cracked hands. I had that cracked hands for years, so I got on the Bella Grace. I haven't taken a Pepsid since December of 2023. My acid reflux cleared up. These are powerful ingredients. And of course, you know I take the Numian Swish with that. That's loaded with glutathione to detox your cells. Some studies show it may remove mercury from your brain, helping prevent Alzheimer's, dementia, and Parkinson's. All right? So there you go. Check all those things out. And if you want to check out all of our sponsors, and by the way, they pay us when you do business with them. So please go do business with them. These are great products. We don't promote stuff we don't believe in or use ourselves. So please go over there, worldviewtube.com/sponsors, worldviewtube.com/sponsors. Worldview Talk is the satellite phone. I have one. The solar generator. I have one. The beanies and blankets that knock down the electromagnetic force. These are also important. Folks, I haven't been stopping a lot the last week to plug a lot of product. Have you noticed that? The bills keep coming in, so I have to, but I really have spent a lot of time just bringing you programming, and a lot of programming beyond normal. 7 hours the day Charlie was murdered. I brought you 3 hours one morning last week. But if you'll notice, I haven't stopped a lot this week to promote product. I just don't feel comfortable promoting some product right now to one degree. It's hard to talk about these things and then bring in products. So I want to be sensitive. But at the same time, we have to keep paying the bills to keep this program going. So we do need your support. Please go there. Do business with these companies. Worldview Healthcare, that's the wellness company. Get your emergency medical packs, your antibiotics, have all this stuff on hand. I saw someone bought a water filter today at worldviewwater.net. Talk about filtering out stuff that causes cancer. Make sure you got a good water filter like I have. I also have one for my shower, because you don't want to be taking these chemicals that are in the water into your skin when you shower or bathe either. So all of these are great companies. Please do business with them, okay? There you find it, worldviewtube.com/sponsors. We got a lot to get to, so let's get going. Joining me now is Mark Mitchell of Rasmussen Polling. He'll be with us as a keynote speaker coming up Friday night, October 3rd, Saturday, October 4th, along with Gordon Chang, Sidney Powell, the man that brought the 5 red heifers to Israel, Dr. Andy Woods, Chris Martinson. We're also going to have with us Dr. Lana Hadia-Maramonde, Alex Newman, quite the lineup, live in person Friday night, October 3rd, Saturday, October 4th. You can still register worldviewstore.com. If you can't make it here in beautiful and safe Collierville, Tennessee, we are not Memphis, folks. We're in Collierville, okay? If you cannot make it, you can live stream it if you have a Vault membership, worldviewtube.com/vault, worldviewtube.com/vault. Mark joins us today to talk about the murder, the assassination of Charlie Kirk, and the trends that he and I both have been studying and tracking, as well as another organization that seemed to tell us back in April 7th, 2025 of this year, that there was a growing acceptance to the idea of murdering people that you disagree with politically. He joins us now. Mark, welcome back to the broadcast. Thanks for being with us. And we're looking forward to having you with us here in the Mid-South, October 3rd and 4th.
Yeah, it'll be great. Looking forward to it. Got to book my flight today.
Well, let's do it. Let's get her done. Yeah. All right, here, let's take a look at this. This is the National Contagion Research Institute and Assassination Culture. Notice it was put out April 7th, 2025. How burning Teslas and killing billionaires became a meme aesthetic for political violence. And I'm going to highlight this one right here because this is one that some folks are talking about today. Justified to murder Elon Musk and President Trump, respectively. Murder justification, 31% and 38% of respondents stated it would be at least somewhat justified to murder Elon Musk and President Trump, respectively. These effects were driven by respondents that self-identified as left of center, with 50% and 56%, at least somewhat, justifying murder for Elon Musk and President Trump, respectively. Property destruction. Nearly 40% of respondents stated it at least somewhat is acceptable to destroy a Tesla dealership in protest. Psychological, ideological correlations with assassination culture. These beliefs are highly correlated with one another, as well as the justification of the murder of United Healthcare CEO and hyper-partisan left-wing ideology. That was in April. Here we are today, September 16th, 2025. Mark, your thoughts, and what is your polling and data showing?
Well, this has been a trend that's happening for years. And the major theme is that most people don't care, don't look into it. And there are very few people polling on this. I'm not sure who funds that outfit, but I'm pretty sure it's only us and them talking about political violence. It just hasn't been a thing. Because keep in mind, most of the mainstream media is actually interested in stoking political violence. And there's like evidence, anecdotal evidence. You remember back in the month between Joe Biden's horrifying debate back in June and July 13th, when Trump was assassinated, there was a period where like every news headline was about Trump's retribution candidacy and how he was going to seek revenge, and the two R words, revenge and retribution. Well, there was actually a report put out back in May by Norm Eison's outfit that talked about the increasing use of, inflammatory words like that, and how that was a major concern that needed to be met head on. And it's like the mainstream media, the mockingbird mouthpiece of the federal government establishment, said, okay, yeah, this is a good headline. Let's run with this. And for a month, you can literally see it in the Google Trends. Just go Google search trend those words. You can see the pickup in the words retribution right in anticipation of the assassination attempt on Donald Trump. Now, is correlation causality? I don't know, but we certainly know more about Tyler Robinson than we know about Matthew Crooks right now. And that's awfully weird considering that Trump is in charge of those federal agencies. Now, we've seen similar things. We had 27% of America, including 46%, a plurality of liberals, saying that the murder of the United Healthcare CEO by Luigi Mangione was understandable. RMG Research put out a poll that said 28% of Democrats thought it would have been better if the assassination had actually killed Donald Trump, hadn't missed. And so also, 43% of Americans think a civil war is likely in the next few years. And a majority of both Republicans and Democrats thought there would be a violent reaction to the 2024 election, regardless of which candidate won. And so the problem is that now all of a sudden you have this assassination, and it's horrifying optics. It's a complete blow to people, and it's actually changing the polling. Donald Trump's approval rating hasn't changed, but just in the last 3 days, we went from a 45% right direction down to 40%. That's a really major move. That's the lowest right direction polling of Trump's entire second term. And I think he's probably going to lose the 40 handle, which would be a really major accomplishment if he does that. And so people are looking around. I think it's a gut punch. They're saying, well, I still approve of Donald Trump, but what the heck is going on with this country? So now today I have some polling back on Charlie Kirk. We're going to have more, but this was just like an initial, let's take the temperature here. And we have 90% of Americans concerned about political violence in America, 69% somewhat. But here's the crazy thing. More Democrats are very concerned than Republicans by almost 10 points. Recently, a gunman in Utah shot and killed conservative activist Charlie Kirk. How likely is it there will be more political violence in the next few months? 85% likely, 48% very. Again, more Democrats say very likely than Republicans. Which is more to blame for these incidents? 48% say heated political rhetoric. Only 28% say availability of firearms. And then this Trump quote that he said on Fox News, agree or disagree. It's long past time for Americans and the media to confront the fact that violence and murder are the tragic consequence of demonizing those with whom you disagree day after day, year after year, in the most hateful and despicable way possible. 58% strongly agree, 28% somewhat. So that's, 84%, including a vast majority of Democrats. So you're seeing a sampling of some of the fringe Looney Tune, crazy, insane people who have been brainwashed by the cult. That's who's on TikTok. That's who's on Facebook right now, getting all of the engagement by the algorithms, probably driven by people who don't have the best interest in America. But the vast majority of Democrats are a little bit flabbergasted by this as well. And they don't want political violence either, but they've been taught that the right's going to be politically violent. And I think that people probably expect there's going to be blowback to this. Now, here's the other thing from that NCRI polling you put out. The number of people who say, again, that it's justifiable for Trump to be killed is a lot less than the number of people who say that burning Teslas is an acceptable form of protest. And we had polling that exactly prove those numbers as well. And so that's how they do this. It's been a psychological operation to radicalize these people through progressively dehumanizing their opponents with absolutely no accountability. And I think what we're going to see, and I have other arenas, Zeruska polling that we can get into, What we've been talking about is Americans increasingly want accountability. I think something like what's happened over the last week is going to increase their resolve. Look at the Greg Gutfeld monologue with Jessica Tarlov. They're done. The communication's over. Like, people don't want to hear unity because Joe Biden promised to run on unity and he shoved it in everybody's face. There was no unity, and Americans acknowledge that. 70% of people rate Joe Biden fair or poor, 52% poor on uniting America. So they're sick of all these BS lines, and that's why the mainstream media is dying. And yet you and I know that the powers that be want accelerationism.
Yes.
And so we're going to see how this all plays out.
So in my documentary, which came out in 2018, Sabotage, I opened it with a clip by Daniel Greenfield saying we're already in a civil war. And he explained that's because when the Marxist Democrats do not want to follow the rule of law or honor election results, this is a perfect example. There are varying levels of civil war, various aspects of civil war. And someone said, but Daniel, I don't see one shooting at each other. And that was back in 2018. And he said, well, shooting each other is how the Civil War ends. But it doesn't mean you're not in one. I think that the Civil War has already started. We have seen multiple conservatives, Christians, Trump supporters murdered. I mean, if we go down the line of the number of church shootings in the last few years, right? Church shootings, Christians murdered in their churches, right? That's not a love crime. That's a hate crime, or it's just crime. I'm not for a bunch of, quote, hate crime laws because that's dangerous in itself, because now we're starting to, like Pam Bondi apparently coming out talking about we're going to go after these people celebrating as a hate crime. I'm sorry, it's disgusting, but they have the freedom of speech, right? As long as they're not in calling for it or inciting it. But if they want to celebrate it, it's disgusting. It reveals who they are. But you go around prosecuting for hate speech on those kind of things, and that's a very slippery slope. But we have a long history of people committing crimes specifically against Christians or conservatives, whether it's, as I said, church shootings, whether it's transgender people shooting up and killing people because of their ideology against Christian school children and teachers, as in my state of Nashville, Tennessee. They're over in Nashville. We could just keep going. People being beat in the street that are wearing MAGA hats, right? So the violence has been going on for a while. I think it's a one-sided civil war. No one can say the violence isn't happening. It is happening. The issue is, and I'm thankful, the right is not taking the bait. It's like, what can we do to get you guys to come out in the street and fight, or to be provocative and do things so that we can label you as the domestic terrorist with your actions, as we've already done with our words. And the right's just not taking it. They're just sitting here watching this and being law-abiding. But I think the Civil War started. I just think it's one-sided. And so they're like, well, let's ratchet it up and let's take out a conservative Christian like Charlie Kirk, who everyone's saying was the nice one. You know, the nice one compared to some of these other folks that are on social media that are on the right. What say you about the fact that we're already in a shooting war? We're already in a civil war. It's just one-sided right now.
There's so much we don't know. And there's a lot of smoke to this fire here. Like, for instance, people who have alleged that a WEF-affiliated individual was running the organization out in Salt Lake City, the Salt Lake City Armed Queers, or whatever it was.
Now, what is that? You just use some initials. What does that mean?
The World Economic Forum.
Oh, the World Economic Forum. Thank you.
Yeah, apparently the individual who was running this group was affiliated with them in some way, and this is the group that went dark the second that Charlie Kirk was assassinated, and may have been a group that's out there arming radical trans people. But the way I kind of look at it is whether these people are organized or not. Like, if it's organized, if these are calculated assassinations, obviously it's a civil war. Potentially, right? Like, these are people who are out there trying, again, to be accelerationists. But look at China. We're not in a war with China. They're our biggest trading partner. And yet at the same time, they do military drills. They're expanding their hospitals. They're having people build up blood banks and talking about retaking Taiwan. All of the while, they're providing assistance to our proxy combatant, Vladimir Putin, out over in Ukraine. And so it's like, okay, well, are we in a war or not? I don't know. They're building the infrastructure and planning for it.
Well, they're
And I
also
look at the
funding.
left, like,
They're also funding.
yeah,
We know the CCP, Chinese Communist Party, is funding, according to numerous experts, they are flooding the zone with money here in the U.S. for their Freedom Road socialist type groups, whatever group it might be. Good grief. We have the whole school systems in America have taken money from the CCP to put their trained agents in our schools. Okay. We covered this probably 4 or 5 years ago. 4 or 5 years ago, the department, Homeland Security Committee on the Senate side was talking about these schools. They're being funded in America, $250,000 or more, with more money coming after that, with CCP people coming to America and teaching in our schools. And these people have to stay in contact with the embassies of the CCP to make sure that they're all behaving and doing their job. What were those networks called? What were those schools called?
Brandon, there was one in my learning team who had the CCP literally on his resume, and most people, young students in China, join the CCP because it's good for their career. They want to be part of the CCP. The best schools over there are the feeder schools for our best institutions. Some of those schools, apparently, according to Grok, are 30, 40, 50% CCP. And we're taking in hundreds of thousands of these people a year, and you and I both know they pay full tuition, whereas your average American that they displace do not. I guarantee that one of these people was in my learning team back in 2008 at Wharton. And so the writing has been on the wall, and we've tolerated a heck of a lot. And now you're in a situation where the Republican establishment and the Trump administration are tolerating a heck of a lot as well. Now, I think what we see on the right, you said they've been peaceful and law-abiding. I think something has changed on the right. I think people are really angry in the way that they are discussing this as far as tolerating this and having, again, increased resolve are very different. And I think that's a problem for Republicans because I think that they're going to demand increasingly more. There are a lot of really tough questions being asked of Kash Patel and of the Trump administration right now about how this happened and why. And I think that's a very valid question because all of these on-ramps and these communities that have been radicalizing people have all been there for a really long time. So for the 10 years where the FBI's primary issue was like domestic terrorists and they were embedding themselves in every militia and trying to entrap people into going out and kidnapping Governor Whitmer and then putting plants in the January 6th Capitol riot, and then going after like Catholic preachers who were protesting abortion clinics. All the while that was happening, they were turning a blind eye to the fact that now, like for instance, Reddit is probably completely co-opted with foreign agents, probably at the best, or, you know, George Soros radicalist plants at the worst, because nobody knows who those moderators are. 10 years ago, and again, I talk about this because Reddit is used by a lot of young people. It's where a lot of them get radicalized. And 10 years ago, it was a libertarian free speech, frontier with the biggest Trump community on the internet. And now if you went on the subreddit for basket weaving and tried to have a discussion with somebody about whether Charlie Kirk was hateful or not, your butt's going to get banned within 30 seconds. They will not allow dissent. The transgender community there is even bigger than the Christian community on Reddit, and they all think that Charlie Kirk is a hateful demon and that he got what he deserved. These are the same people that will, they literally bait them in with porn and video games, teenagers, right? And then they turn them into transsexuals. They get affiliated with Antifa. They learn hateful things about the right. And already it's been alleged that the second biggest political subreddit, again, had Ghislaine Maxwell as one of its moderators. So who are those other moderators? And I love free speech. I think we should have free speech, but there are also limits to free speech. And quite frankly, we can use legislation, executive orders, or our own intel gathering apparatus to protect Americans. Okay. What was that whole thing about the Patriot Act and recording every single communique in America so that it can be used X key score and go figure out who's plotting against us? Well, apparently none of that was ever used on leftists because we're being caught awful flat-footed. Like all this stuff that's coming out about, okay, well, this guy was living with a transsexual furry that spent all day playing video games on Discord and on Reddit and going to a lot of that's being uncovered by people on Twitter who are also asking really hard questions about how bad The story coming out of the FBI was. So at a certain point, you have to wonder, like, when is the government going to be used in the same way that the left has used it?
Well, here is,
and again, I'm not calling for illegal stuff, but
here is Senator Hawley in the hearing this morning with Kash Patel on the fact that they have over 20 groups that seem to have had foreknowledge of this assassination plot. Listen to this.
It's done in this investigation. Is the FBI investigating the Kirk assassination as part of this broader pattern of anti-religious, anti-Christian violence?
We are investigating Charlie's assassination fully and completely, and running out every lead related to any allegation of broader violence, and we're producing results on that we'll disclose when appropriate.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. Let me just ask you a few questions about that, if I could.
Sure.
Reports have suggested that the FBI is investigating a broader network of groups that may have had some knowledge of the shooter's plans. Can you give us any details on that, following up what you already said in public? How's the FBI working to find other potential accomplices, folks who may have known about the shooter's plans, folks who may have encouraged him? Any update on any of that?
So in terms of what we do for an interrogation perspective, we go and reach out to the family and community immediately. And we've conducted those investigations and interrogations with local law enforcement, and we're continuing to do that because those closest to the suspect are going to hopefully know the most about the suspect and his beliefs and his ideology. On top of that, unfortunately, it has been leaked that there was a Discord chat, and for those unfamiliar with it, it's a gaming chat room online that the suspect participated in. So what we're doing, we've already done, is serve legal process, not just on Discord, so that the information we gathered is sustained and held in a evidentiary posture that we could use in prosecution should it be decided to do so. And we're also going to be investigating anyone and everyone involved in that Discord chat.
Okay, very good. I see the public reports that the Discord thread had as many as 20 additional users. It sounds like you're trying to run down all of that to see if that's accurate, who else may have been on that thread, what they may have known. Is that fair to say?
It's a lot more than that, and we're running them all down.
It's a lot more than 20?
Yes, sir.
And you're running all of that to ground?
Every single one.
Yeah, fantastic. Let me just turn to the broader question here of anti-religious, anti-Christian violence. Let me just give you a few stats that I'm...
Okay, so over 20 groups are being investigated who apparently had foreknowledge that this was coming. Now,
these groups just didn't appear out of nowhere.
No, of course
not.
Like,
how long has it been since Trump won, said he was going to declare Antifa a terrorist organization?
Now look at this. Senate report, let's go back to 2019. Senate report has slammed the Chinese learning centers operating at over 100 U.S. universities, all right? These are your Confucius Institute. And we've talked about these back in 2019 when the report came out from the Senate. And there was crickets by most people. They just didn't think it was important. But of course, we cover China pretty closely. And we were talking about brainwashing and how the Chinese brainwashed our American POWs during the Korean War. So, we were talking about this very quickly in 2019 when it came out. Then it finally started to get steam. People started realizing, we better talk about this. But you got the CCP operating on 100 U.S. university campuses. That's not counting the high schools. Now, there are people, I cannot validate this yet, but there are people that are texting me and emailing us saying that there is a friendly connection between that university where Charlie Kirk was assassinated in Utah and the CCP. Now, again, I don't know whether that's true or not. We'll do some digging and see if that's one of the universities. I don't know. But I do know that...
I'll make a bold statement. I'll make a bold statement. Foreign actors were complicit in the assassination of Charlie Kirk.
I agree.
It's just a question of who and how.
Yeah, I 100% agree.
Woke ideology that poisons people, that dehumanizes their enemy, this is all being pushed by other players. And the real sad thing is, again, I don't know if this guy acted alone or not. I think he was radicalized by radical people that have embedded themselves in on-ramps for radicalization that the government appears to not have even concerned themselves with up to this point, even though an assassination almost identical to this almost happened over a little over a year ago with no answers.
You're talking about President Trump, right?
Yeah, but if you look at Charlie Kirk, Like, the real troubling problem for America is if you were to list all of the people that could have potentially had a motive to pull this off, partly because of Biden, partly because of the Uniparty, the list is really freaking long. Like, it could have been right-wing radicals, left-wing radicals, groypers, narco-terrorists, the New World Order folks. It could have been Palestine. It could have been Israel. It could have been Iran. It could have been Russia. It could have been China. It could have been MI5. It could have been literally anybody. And so the fact that, again, we're just pulling the string on the things that endanger Americans, when all of the globe is arraying itself against what has been our hegemony, is really troubling.
I agree.
And
you know,
obviously, yeah.
Yesterday, we brought forward Bill Federer again, close friends of Charlie, who traveled with him, was friends with him, very close friends for 10 years, who was in South Korea with him the week before Charlie was assassinated. Charlie was being very bold about facing down the communists in South Korea that are taking, the lead there now and persecuting the last president and his wife. And they seem to be very well tied to China. And Bill Federer said last night, who was on that trip with Charlie and in the back room, in the green rooms and some of the meetings, that Charlie said, I have to go to Utah. But after Utah, I am going to start concentrating more on helping South Korea fight the communists. And if any of you pastors, he was specifically working with the large Christian churches and pastors, if any of you are imprisoned, I will use my influence with President Trump to help you. So again, I have to ask, why are we not looking at China? Everyone's screaming about Israel. Well, why is nobody talking about China? Okay, and what we've been laying about China and their influence in the universities and in America and their funding of these radical groups in the country, right? And if we know China is preparing for war, and we've been doing TV shows on China preparing for war with America for a long time. I think the one we did for an hour was in 2020. A whole hour on China preparing for war against the U.S. was in 2020, 5 years ago. Okay, this is not conspiracy. Our own Pentagon was admitting at the time China is preparing for war. Okay, this is fact. Yeah. One way you begin for war is
2004.
One way you begin to prepare for war is you are involved in what's called gray terror, which involves making sure you take down distribution of food, resources, transportation, railroad, you blow up food processing plants. Then you move on, as we saw from the own military U.S. Army document on warfare, unrestricted warfare, is you begin to be involved in political assassinations. So what I'm saying is I'm checking the boxes going, yeah, gray terror. How much of that we've seen the last few years, right? Food plants, egg plants, railroads, chemicals. I mean, it's nonstop. Gray terror, boom. Now political assassinations, check. Funding of radical, extremist, anti-American revolutionary groups in the street calling for violence, check. I mean, how much more do we have to say? Okay, I'm putting a big spotlight on China. Okay, now, yes, you can add in the other groups that we're talking about, but we know for a fact, and then you add in the red-green axis, Iran. Now you got the two groups together. And most Americans, again, I think are being distracted by the LGBTQ trans furry crowd. I think that is not the main player. They are the camouflage. We have to get to who was really behind it. Agree or disagree?
Well, it's a destabilization play, like they've destabilized everything. They've economically destabilized America. They've destabilized the family. They have some control over entertainment, although, again, it's not ubiquitously China. I think that China works with our other adversaries in a way that is, they're obviously our biggest, what's the word? We're going up against them the most, but they just use every system against us. You and I both know why we're not going after China. And I want to highlight, I was a nuclear submariner. We had more missiles pointed at China than any other place, and I'm pretty sure it's probably the same, but they're our number one trading partner. And what happens the second that Trump takes any aggressive stance toward China, period whatsoever, the phones melt down in the Senate. That's what happens. Every single person that's donated $1 to a Republican senator calls up and says, what on earth are you doing? This is tanking my stock. do you want your economy to implode? The whole system's coming crashing down. And so we've put ourselves in a situation through complacency and, quite frankly, probably greed, where we are literally incapable of decoupling from the people that want us gone the most. And China doesn't want to invade America. China wants Americans shooting each other. And so this is obviously like part of that playbook. Now, the problem I see, though, in the near term is that the right has been very tolerant. I don't know. What's the word? Not complacent.
Passive. Apathetic.
Passive is the right word.
And passive.
Willing to allow Trump to do the heavy lifting for them. And we talked a lot about the political violence polling. The one bit of polling that concerns me, have to be very specific about when this was taken. This was taken September 10th. Our very first sample was 3 hours after Charlie Kirk had been assassinated. So some people had heard about it, some people hadn't. But this polling was specifically about the Charlotte murder of the Ukrainian refugee Irina Zerutska. And that image was seen by 62% of America. Like almost everybody has seen that picture of her being horribly murdered on the light rail train. And one of the questions that I think is an important benchmark is whether people support capital punishment or not. And so that question really tells you a lot about a human, their level of compassion, understanding, empathy, their morality, the way they think about justice. And we asked that about 5 years ago, and the death penalty won 49% to 36%. So by 13 points. And we just asked it whether Carlos Brown should be executed, and it's 60-20. So it went from plus 13 to plus 40. This is a major shift in the way Americans think about justice. The death penalty for this guy, and granted, he was a young black guy, and there has not been a lot of information about his background. Like the default position you would assume for these people is like, oh, well, you know, systematic racism or whatever, right? Democrats want him executed 48-28. So that's plus 20. They went from underwater on the death penalty to plus 20 on the death penalty for this guy. Republicans, it's 76-11, so it's plus 65. And independents, it's plus 40. Everybody who's seen the73% to 14. So massive and overwhelming demand for capital justice. And you and I both know it's going to take 20 years. Now you got Luigi Mangione, you got DeCarlos Brown. You're going to have Tyler Robinson, assuming he doesn't get the Epstein treatment. And then you have basically zero accountability for the Butler assassination. The guy got his, brains pink misted, but there has been no accountability, especially out of the Secret Service, which we now find has Charlie Kirk, people cheering for the Charlie Kirk assassination. How does that still happen? How is there anyone left in the Secret Service? Like, don't we want there to be zero more assassination attempts on Donald Trump? And yet we have ideologues who think that Charlie Kirk was hateful and deserved death in the Secret Service and at every level of our military and at every other institution that services Americans. Are they the majority of people? No, but they're still there.
Well, you bring up a very good point. The cancer that is inside the federal government. Here is fitting with that, I think, very interesting conversation between Senator Charles Grassley of Iowa today and FBI Director Kash Patel about the FBI. Watch and listen.
Central American gangs like MS-13. Now, it's well understood that your predecessor left you an FBI infected with politics. I'm going to provide examples of that today, including making public new whistleblower records. At your nomination hearing, I made public records that whistleblowers provide me about Arctic Frost. Arctic Frost was the FBI case opened and approved by antitrust Trump FBI agent Thibault.
All right, I want to make sure the audience understands him. Arctic Frost, opened by anti-Trump FBI guys. Arctic Frost, opened by the FBI. What was Arctic Frost about? Listen.
Arctic Frost then became Jack Smith's elector case against then Citizen Trump and now President Trump. These new records show that Arctic Frost was much broader than just an electoral matter. The case was expanded to Republican organizations.
All right, so Arctic Frost went from just concentrating on Donald Trump to concentrating on Republican organizations.
Some examples of the group that Ray FBI sought to place under political investigation included the Republican National Committee, Republican Attorney General's Association, and various Trump political groups. In total, 92 Republican targets, including Republican groups and Republican-linked individuals, were placed under investigative scope of Arctic Frost. On that political list was one of Charlie Kirk's groups, Turning Point USA.
So the FBI was targeting Charlie Kirk. Are you shocked, Americans? Are you shocked now that you have more questions than answers about not only the attempted assassination of Donald Trump, but the successful assassination of Charlie Kirk? Because I'm telling you, this government is running itself. The shadow government, the power elite, they run themselves. If you don't believe me, then ask yourself, how is it that the IRS is running today? How is the IRS running and operating today? Because guess what? The IRS commissioner lasted only a few weeks, Billy Long. Yeah. And he went to become the ambassador to Iceland. Who is running the IRS today? The Treasury Secretary. Wait a minute. This man can run the IRS with tens upon tens of thousands of employees and buildings and oh my. And then the Treasury Department? You can run both of those? No, you cannot. You can barely run one of these government agencies. They're run by civil servants, many of them who are hardcore leftist, cultural Marxists. Many of them now have infiltrated that I think are Islamist.
Yep.
So if you don't think that this government if you think this government is run by Trump and his people, you don't understand. President Trump didn't have control of his own government in his first term. He doesn't have full control of this government in this term.
That's true. 100%.
Let me continue and then have you comment on. Yep. Let me continue and then we'll let you comment on all of this.
In other words, Arctic Frost wasn't just a case to politically investigate Trump. It was the vehicle by which partisan FBI agents and Department of Justice prosecutors could achieve their partisan ends and improperly investigate the entire Republican political apparatus. So today, Senator Johnson and I are making these records public for the entire country to see, and I hope a lot of people are interested in seeing what government can do when various agencies have a political agenda. My investigative work has also exposed the political way in which Peter Navarro was investigated and prosecuted. When FBI agent Thibault found out that Biden's DOJ would prosecute Navarro, he said, "Wow, great." That's a quote, unquote. Through whistleblowers, I've obtained a audio recording of Special Agent Giagardina and Special Agent Sebastian Gardner's delivery of a subpoena to Navarro. I'm making that audio public today. In a court document filed by the Department of Justice.
All right, we'll stop it there. Respond to all this, please, Mark.
What it comes down to is that I feel like the Trump administration doesn't understand accountability or doesn't have the will to go through what accountability is.
Or they're afraid. They're afraid. Do you not think that at some level this president hasn't been threatened? He was on July 13th. Do you not think at some level? I mean, wasn't it Glenn Beck that came out? Logan, can you find the clip? Logan, can we find the clip? Wasn't it Glenn Beck that came out and said he was called into the Oval Office by George W. Bush and told, hey, look, this is how it works? Can you find that clip? They got
to talk.
Did you hear that? Did you hear about that, Mark?
No, but I mean, it just makes sense. I think all of DC operates on a little secret talk about how things work here and how you're not supposed to buck the status quo. Voters said only 30% of them trusted the federal government. And then they voted for Trump, and he got a mandate. And what I've been saying is you can't just take a corrupt organization like, for instance, the FBI, where 53% of people thought the FBI was Joe Biden's personal Gestapo. You can't take that organization and then automatically put a new person at the head and expect everybody to all of a sudden forget that it was an organization, that it was a Gestapo. And the problem is that, like, it would almost be better if Trump was using the FBI as his Gestapo, because then people at least would have some recourse. I didn't like the way the FBI worked under Biden. Let's see how it works under Trump. Well, from all intents and purposes, it looks like it's still operating as if it were under Biden.
That's exactly
because
right.
Because what does it look like when an organization gets overhauled? I've seen it. I did a cleanup on a 100-person team at Walmart. It's a lot of work. You have to talk to a lot of people. You have to understand what drives them, change the culture, fire the cancerous ones, hire new ones. And the way it has to be done rapidly, I thankfully had time. If you're going to do it rapidly, it's going to look something like what happened when Elon Musk bought Twitter. What did he do? He fired 80% of the workforce, and it was touch and go on a daily basis about whether that website worked or not. And so until Trump, and I've been saying this is accountability. You have to show people that the government has been restored to proper functioning. And what we're finding more and more is that it's still functioning incorrectly. And there comes a point where people will not accept it. And I don't know what that point is. But what I'm saying is this week we took a really big step down a path that's different than the path of Donald Trump will fix this. And so Donald Trump's window is closing until we see major firings, major investigations, root cause corrective action, agencies being shut down. With the political capital that Trump has now after this assassination and the majorities he has in control of the government, my question for you would be, what would Democrats do in this situation? They would do something probably entirely different than what we're seeing out of Republicans. Mm-hmm. And so, again, Donald Trump doesn't even control the Republicans. Those organizations are still hopelessly corrupt. Where can voters turn if they have no redress for their grievances?
Golly, exactly. Where can they? Listen to what Glenn Beck said. Listen to this, guys.
Election. I went to the White House because I was called on the carpet by George W. Bush because I was not happy with the war and the way it was going. And I had made some comment about, I don't remember even what it was, but I made some comment on the air that, hey, left, you want to impeach him? Here's the thing you impeach him on, because this is actually impeachable. And that didn't sit well with the Bush administration. They didn't like that. And I get a call on the way home from the studios, and it's the White House. And this is the first time the White House had ever called me without me reaching out first. And I get a call, and it's a 202 number. And I'm like, it's 1414. 202, I can't remember, 458 or something, 1414. And I remember 202, that's Washington, D.C., and 1414, I remember that's the number of the White House. And I look at it for a while, and I'm like, I think that's the White House. And I pick it up. Mr. Beck? Yes? The president would like to see you in the Oval tomorrow morning at 10. Now, I'm on the air at 10 o'clock in the morning. Do you think you could make that? I didn't even know what to say. I literally held the phone away from my head, and I looked at I'm driving, and I look at the phone, and I look at the road, and I don't even know what to say. And I just, I said, well, hang on, let me check. Let me check. And I put the phone back up next to my ear, and I'm like, okay, looks good. Yeah, I can be there. Hang up the phone. It was freaky. I get there, and the first thing the president says, I sit in the chair, in the Zelensky chair, and the first thing the president says to me is, and laced with profanity, a lot of people think they know how they can be the effing president. Well, they have no effing idea how to be the effing president. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is going to be the longest hour of my life. And he read me the riot act. After that was all over and he had that out of his system, we stood up at the end, and it was the day that Barack Obama had said that if he were president, he would just fly our planes over the border into Pakistan and he would just bomb Pakistan. Well, this is at the point where Pakistan is kind of helping us. Okay, they're not our friends, they're more frenemies, but they're kind of helping us at this point. And he says, Barack Obama says, you know, and if he would have done that, the whole coalition of the willing, all of that crap would have gone right out the window. And so I said to the president as I'm walking out, and he's standing by the Oval or by the Resolute desk, and I said, Mr. President, I said, I don't know if you heard this, but today, Barack Obama, and he said, oh, I heard that. Don't worry about that. Don't worry about that. And I said, okay. And he said, trust me, Glenn, whoever comes into this office, no matter what party they're in, they're going to sit behind this desk. And they're going to realize, because they're going to be advised by exactly the same people that have been advising me, that they really have no choice. This is what they have to do. And he said, have a good day. And I'm like, holy cow. I walked out and do you remember me calling you after that, Stu?
Yes.
And I was freaked out. I was like, this is not good. The president isn't really the president. The president is just listening to all these advisors who were advising the last president and the president before that. And it's all State Department stuff. And they're just executing a long plan. What difference does it make who we have in the office if that's true?
Yeah,
remember that?
One specific part of that you didn't mention was because he was very angry at you, but that part of the conversation was meant to make you feel good, right?
Yes.
It wasn't like an angry thing. It was hey, it's okay, calm down. All the decisions will remain the same. And it's like, that didn't calm you down much.
No, it made it worse.
Yes.
And so why do I bring this story up, which I've told before? Why do I bring this story up? I bring this story up because when Donald Trump sat at the table and said, just going to get old Vlad on the phone, and he stands up, walks out of the room with all the world leaders, and he just picks up the phone and calls Vladimir Putin and says, hey, I just want to keep you up to speed of what's going on. He didn't ask for permission. He didn't have anybody whispering in his ear. He's leading the State Department. He's leading the world. He's keeping his own counsel. That hasn't been done by a president in I don't know how long. And it's why we're once again the leaders of the world.
Well, first of all, I don't know that I would agree with that assumption. I don't think he's making the decisions. And I think that's one reason, in my opinion, why he flip-flops on things. He says something and then he goes back on it. He says something and goes back on it. Is that because he wants to do this, but then he's told, no, you're not going to do it, and so he has to change course? I don't know. But number two, we are not the leaders of the world. This is the 1980s mentality these people have got to get over, okay? We are not the leaders of the world. We can't even run our own federal government.
Yeah.
We have the BRICS, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, and all these other nations rushing together to de-dollarize the world. The only thing that's really made us strong has been our military, our values, and our economy. And we've lost our values. Our economy is in the toilet. We're upside down. Banks are holding derivatives, which are an absolute weapon of destruction. And you have the dollar being destroyed so quickly, and our purchasing power, and our military is nothing what it should be, as China and Russia are under 5th and 6th generation warfare technology. And we still have commentators that think we're ruling and leading the world. Baloney. But I wanted to play that to show you that apparently it didn't matter that Obama was coming in next. He'll be getting the same advice from the people I get it from on how things are going to happen. This is what many presidents have referred to as the power elite. Mark?
Yeah. Back in January, I mean, even before that, I've said Washington, D.C. is occupied territory by the uniparty kleptocracy. this unholy alliance of global homo corporations, the World Economic Forum, our biggest foreign adversaries, NATO and its expansionist thirst for blood, for the blood of my kids. And let me say this to George W. Bush, you treasonous piece of crap, to sit there and acknowledge to one of the biggest conservative influencers that he knows this is not a representative democracy. This is literally an autocracy of the DC elite. And it was like that then, and it's still the same now. Now, what blows my mind is, like, Brannon, can you imagine just turning back our culture to just what it was during Bush's administration? The social cohesion, the better people could still trust institutions, the better economic outlook, the much less fragmented society, a lot lower levels of violent rhetoric. I mean, this is like, they ubiquitously voted for the war in Iraq. Remember, Cindy Sheehan was like the biggest problem we had back then. It's just utterly mind-blowing. And for the freaking intel apparatus to screw it all up by dabbling in the Middle East, putting us in a situation where we encumbered ourselves with, I think, what was probably, I mean, the first domino to fall in what has become a dying empire. And now Donald Trump, I don't know what's going on there. I think Donald Trump is very well informed. I think he's an intuitive leader, and he makes decisions, snap decisions based on a limited set of information. And if he finds new information, he's going to change his mind. That's strong leadership. But obviously something's not clicking, because you look at what happens again with Kash Patel. And the second he gets in charge of the FBI, it's all sunshine and roses about how they're focused on the right things now, even though there have been no firings, no root cause corrective actions, no exposés put out or any reports filed about how it was focused on the wrong things and it's now focused on the right things. And we see all of the signs of still things going in the wrong direction. Why are we still fighting a proxy war with Russia? Why have we not done anything against China? Why are we the influences still rule Washington, D.C. And now I know it, and you know it, that this system cannot fix itself. The only question remains, well, when will the majority of Americans who are willing to take radical action know it? And I don't have an answer to that, but it feels like it's coming. And unfortunately, we look like we're on the wrong path right now. A messy fourth turning. I don't know how else this gets fixed. And is that civil war? Is that revolution? Impossible to predict. It all comes down to, like, who is willing to push the farthest, and I guess we're going to see.
And I will close with this, and I think you agree with me. We'll find out. What makes Charlie Kirk's assassination different than a political assassination is that Charlie Kirk was a self-described evangelical Christian. Big time self-described evangelical Christian, defending the Bible, promoting the gospel. People come to Christ, study the Bible, pray, put Christ first, right? And we had on Reddit people saying, as you point out in one of your feeds, don't show it because it has the F word in it, this is the most dangerous thing the U.S. has seen. Insane, well-armed evangelicals pushing for control of their government, electing rapists and child molesters. Here's another one. I feel you. I also think the Christian Taliban is getting out of control and has too much power. This was not as much of a political assassination as it was, I believe, a religious Christian evangelical assassination. And I think Christians should be very aware of the fact that it's not just conservatives being hunted. It is Christians, evangelical, Bible-believing Christians that are going to be hunted. They are being hunted. And I hate to say it, so are many Jewish people who think what we will of Benjamin Netanyahu, the Israeli government. But we have Jews in America that are being hunted in their own synagogues, all right? Why is it that Jews and Christians get hunted by the left?
Yeah. No, I think you're 100% right. He did not get murdered because of the words he spoke were offensive. He got murdered because the people who murdered him wanted his words to be offensive. There are two predominant worldviews here at war. The worldview of traditional Western Christianity, the Logos and the classical liberalism, based on Judeo-Christian values that has allowed our representative democracy to flourish. That's worldview 1. Worldview 2 is, like you said, this like disgusting mix of postmodernist, Marxist, and I'll add in there globo homo, degenerate, everything goes, moral relativism, acceptance, not repentance. Like that is the other worldview. Now, I can tell you it's a minority. It's a growing minority, but it is the vast minority. And so the real question is what recourse does the majority have now that it understands that maybe it's beginning to understand that no help is coming unless something radically changes? And I just don't know. But it's not going anywhere well. And certainly you can see that the rhetoric is about as violent as it gets. And that puts us in a dangerous situation.
Yep.
It would appear that Donald Trump's going to continue to keep sending National Guard troops to blue cities. Well, how far do they push resistance? What happens?
Well, we've already heard the mayor of Chicago talk about that.
Yeah.
We had a guy. Did we play? Yeah. We had a guy last night, a Hispanic guy we played last night with my Man on the Street interview in Memphis Friday. We played last night talking about if you send your National Guard here, and he got up and he threw his hat down, dropping the F-bomb. I mean, some of these people, I think, are going to go to arms with the National Guard.
It could happen. It could absolutely happen. Or even like what happens if, one of the scenarios I came up with was we have a Democrat governor harboring an illegal alien, Murphy in New Jersey. He's come out and said that he's going to keep doing it and resist the federal government. Well, Homan could send ICE there. What's he going to do with the state troopers? Like, what's going to happen? And I think that we're going to find people criminally accountable. And I also think that we have an impending. This gets to rumor, but there's reasons to believe that accountability for election fraud is coming. And that maybe finally some of this information that people have been collecting, some of these depositions, some of this actual evidence is going to find its way to grand juries. Can't say more than that. I don't know much more than that, but I think it is happening because I think it's one of the things on Donald Trump's punch list that absolutely had to happen.
Which Mark, if they cannot do a revolution through voting, then they must do a revolution other ways, and they must do a revolution that maybe stops more stuff from coming out and going forward.
That's right. That's right. It's gonna start happening fast, and I have no idea what it looks like. But this is what happens at the end of fourth turnings. So,
well, he'll be with us. He'll be with us in person Friday night, October 3rd, Saturday, October 4th. Roll up the graphic there, guys. Gordon Chang, expert on the CCP. Mark Mitchell, Hadia Miramonde, who was meeting face-to-face with Gaddafi. I mean, what a time to be at our conference. Friday night, October 3rd, Saturday, October 4th. Yes, we have security. We have everybody from the police chief down in our town that's talked with me, and they want us to have a great time and be safe. And this is a safe community. Someone's like, I didn't realize this was in Memphis, one of our speakers. Or I didn't realize how Memphis was so dangerous. I'm like, I don't live in Memphis. The conference isn't in Memphis. Now, if you want to go to Orange Mound, good luck. I hope you make it out. If you want to go over to, some Fraser, good luck. I hope it goes well for you. But we're not holding our conference in Orange Mound in Fraser. We're not even in Memphis. We are in Collierville, Tennessee. Collierville, Tennessee, a very nice, safe community. They had 1,000 people on the town square Sunday night. 1,000. If it was so dangerous, do you think 1,000 people would have brought out their lawn chairs for a vigil for Charlie Kirk? No. This is a safe community, okay? So don't be scared to come to Collierville, okay? Come and join us. Don't let the liberals win, the progressives, the Marxists, the trans terrorists. Worldviewstore.com, worldviewstore.com. Get your ticket. Be with us the Thursday night optional concert banquet Thursday night with a keynote address by Hadia as well. Now, if you can't be with us in person, you can watch it online if you have a membership at any level. Worldviewtube.com/vault, worldviewtube.com/vault. And then I want you to go and follow Mark Mitchell on his X account right there, @HonestPollster, @HonestPollster. Big news tonight. Senator Chuck Grassley says the whistleblower has documented Arctic Frost, a group inside the FBI, to track conservative Christian Republican groups and organizations that included Charlie Kirk's. Do not think for 1 minute, folks, your own government was not complicit in some way in the murder of Charlie Kirk, just as they were, I think, involved in the attempted assassination of Donald Trump. You agree?
Let's get some accountability. Show me a list of every investigation that was happening and a list of every investigation that's happening now. You can keep them confidential or whatever, but let's just see it. What's changed? And I think it probably won't be much.
Nope. All right. Look forward to having you back and, of course, having you in person October 3rd and 4th. Thank you, Mark.
All right. Thank you. Great to be here.
You too, my friend. We'll be right back after this break. Hello, I'm Brannon Howse. Melissa and I have been taking Bella Grace, this powerful elixir, since last fall, 2023. The results have been amazing. My hands would crack and bleed, deep cuts and cracks every winter for years. No matter what we did, we couldn't get them to stop cracking and bleeding. This year, I took Bella Grace, no cracking, no bleeding. My acid reflux, gone. Haven't had to take a Pepsid. My hair growth, the last 2 times I had my hair cut, the lady had to use thinning shears on my hair. That's amazing. We've also received incredible feedback from you, our listening audience, and the impact it's had for you. This is loaded with astaxanthin. That's a powerful antioxidant. Collagen, but top grade collagen. Studies show 95% of it is being absorbed in the body because of the way they develop it. Then we have something called cat's claw. That's an anti-inflammatory from a vine in Peru. It's the bark, and it's an anti-inflammatory. There are about 80 clinical trials on Bella Grace. Please get a subscription now and save. MelissaHouseBG.com. Joining me now is Shahram Hadian. But before he does, take a look at this. I put this at worldviewreport.com today. Who are armed queers Salt Lake City? Utah-based trans militia group under scrutiny after deleting social media account on day of Charlie Kirk killing. This is going all over. Authorities probing the September 10th assassination of activist Charlie Kirk are reviving online activity, are reviewing it, and several left-leaning groups in Utah after at least one organization removed its social media presence in the immediate aftermath of the killing, sources say. Among the organizations under review is Armed Queers Salt Lake City, a Utah-based group that has described itself publicly as training and organizing LGBTQ plus people to defend their communities. Now, folks, what is it they need to have their communities defended from? Well, first of all, I covered this briefly on radio today, but I'm going to go into more detail tonight with Shahram Hadian. This group, apparently some of their leaders, you can hear a video, took a trip to Cuba recently. What? How can you do that and just come back into the country without a lot of questioning, or at least red flags, right? Pardon the pun, red flags. Speaking of red, look at the red star. Look how queer is a hammer and sickle. Queer resistance. Now, they go on to list out their 6 principles. I mentioned them on radio today. They bear repeating. The armed and militant protection of queer and trans communities and all oppressed people. Wait a minute. How are they oppressed? They equate words now with the need to respond with being armed. So if you quote the Bible when it comes to marriage, sexuality, etc., if you don't agree with LGBTQ, if you don't agree with drag queen shows, if you don't agree with grooming children, if you don't agree with chemical castration of children and hormone treatments so that a little boy can apparently think he's a little girl, then apparently that is oppressive. And the answer is militant LGBT group being armed? What's their second of their 6 principles? The end of capitalistic oppression and exploitation. Movement towards a socialist society. Yeah, because capitalism is oppressive. You have to get up and get a job and work and, actually take a shower and bathe. And maybe, hey, ladies, shave your armpits. Go to the work, shave your legs. Don't come in there look like a hairy ape, and actually provide people with customer service to keep a job. Well, that's oppressive. You expect me to get up and shave and actually look good, decent? And guys, good luck finding a job at most places when you show up as a guy in a dress with a bunch of makeup on. So these places don't want to hire folks like that. They're not looking for a freak show at their company. But apparently that's oppressive to have to actually behave and act your born sex. Capitalism is oppression. Really? Well, then what is communism? What's killed more people, the free market capitalist system or communism? Communism, folks, has killed well over 500 million people. I've gotten into that before. 3, trans liberation from the gender binary and biological essentialism, not assimilation. Trans liberation from the gender binary and biological essentialism, not assimilation. Housing as a human right and necessity not to be profited from, put an end to landlordship. And who's going to, by the way, want to have apartment buildings and homes for rent and condos for rent if there's no profit? Where's the motivation? How has free housing worked out, by the way? We've had free housing. Remember all the slums we have in America from years gone by when the government was giving out free housing? You want to live in a nice house, in a nice neighborhood, where if there's a leak in the roof, it gets taken care of? Well, that usually comes from an entrepreneur, a free market guy who has a profit motive. Nothing wrong with that, offering a service. Well, how about 5, abolish police and prisons as they serve as nothing but oppressors. 6, the end of bourgeoisie, assimilationist LGBTQ organizations, the start of radical queer and trans organizing. This is nothing but communism. And they're going to use the communists are going to use the transgenders to do it. Now, I tried to tell the pro-family groups 20 years ago that cultural Marxism was using the LGBTQ as a cannon fodder for a communist revolution. A lot of them didn't want to listen to me. I tried to tell them, when you go out here and you come out against the gays, if you don't root it in communism, you're missing the point and you sound like a bunch of haters. But if you will explain that they're using these people as cannon fodder for a revolution and that this is really communism, Marxism, cultural Marxism to destroy the family and to destroy masculinity, because after all, that's what the Frankfurt School said. The folks that came here from Germany in about 1933 said their goal was the destruction of the patriarchal society, a man-led society with patriotism and strong leaders. Think John Wayne. So here we are. And as always, the pro-family group is usually multiple years behind the curve. We haven't even been able to get them to talk correctly for years about the Islamists, much less the Marxist. But here's the proof of what I was trying to tell them back then so many years ago, that there are communists behind this. This is really the communists using this group. Because what they need, according to Herbert Marcuse, is a coalition of victims. Who is it that's oppressing you guys? It's a capitalist. Who are they oppressing? The immigrants, the illegal immigrants, the LGBTQ sexual liberation groups, minorities, feminists, women. These are some of the groups they're oppressing. So you're a coalition of victims, and who is making you suffer? The Christians and the capitalists. The Christians and the capitalist. The source of all suffering is Christianity and capitalism. That's what I've been telling for years in my books. The Marxists at the Frankfurt School were saying the source of all suffering and oppression is Christianity and capitalism. And that's why I think they killed Charlie Kirk. Because Charlie Kirk represented Christianity. Did I agree with every theological or doctrinal thing he espoused? No. Did I agree with every person that he met with and promoted religiously? No. But overall, he represented Christianity and capitalism. And by taking him out, they're proving that's who they're going after. And here are the communists. Joining me now is Shahram Hadian. We got a lot to get to. Shahram, what do you make of those opening remarks?
I completely agree with you 100%, Brannon. First of all, the 6 points that you read there, totally align with the Marxist communist ideology on the left. I would argue, I would add that they also align with the green side of that axis in regards to the same agenda, right? Because we know that the Islamic agenda carries forth with it the same goals. The ending of capitalism, the ending of Western society, free thought, Christianity. The only difference is that Islam obviously is not going to promote the so-called queer LGBT agenda in the upper house. It will in the lower house and promote it, pretend like they're for it, pretend like they're, advocating for it. But this is ought to be what you and I talked about earlier on radio. This ought to be the moment where we understand that the civil war has been declared and is already being fought. We are, I don't even feel like we have our foot. Most people have their foot in the battlefield. The battlefield is all around us. It's already being waged. They've already declared war, just like Islam declares war in their lower house, which is called the House of War. This leftist side is declaring war and using a group of confused, disenfranchised, demonically, obsessed, possessed individuals, Brannon, that are so seared in their thought process and their conscience that whoever they're told is the enemy. And as you said earlier on radio, put a gun in their hand, and now you have an army. So when are we going to realize that this battle is far underway? And yes, we don't wrestle against flesh and blood, but we also have to understand what the tactical approach is, who the players are, and that this organization, this Salt Lake Armed Queers for Salt Lake City, is just one. Brannon, this is just one organization of hundreds that are coordinating and working together. In fact, I don't know if you saw this, you may have already posted this, but they were connecting this group to the group that was in Elm Fork Branch, the John Brown Gun Club, where they were training a lot of these members of the so-called trans community, which, remember now, half of Antifa is trans. And that group is implicated in the July 4th killing of a Texas ICE agent. That's in the state of Texas. This is in the state of Utah. What does that tell you? There is cross-country or international coordination. And then the video that you're going to play, that they actually went to Cuba. Again, where, this is ridiculous. Our law enforcement community is so corrupt that these groups shouldn't be operating, let alone having this kind of freedom to move about and go into foreign countries and get training from known Marxists on revolution.
And just to be clear, I'm not saying, and I want to imply this group had anything to do with the murder of Charlie Kirk, but here's what this website says. Law enforcement officials are reviewing whether any individuals or network connected to the group or to the online communities, including gaming platforms and social pages, had prior knowledge of or provided material support for the alleged shooter, Tyler Robinson. Now, I don't know if Tyler was the shooter or not. I tend to think not. I tend to think that he's a patsy. And the more I review videos today, and I think I sent some to you, or maybe you and I talked about it, but I sent some to some of my friends. I said, the more I review this and listen to guys that are snipers and experts, the more I'm thinking, I'm not being dogmatic. I'm just saying the more I'm willing to see, and I'm willing to be proven wrong either way. But the more I look at it, the more I'm thinking that the shot came from the side, and I'm not saying it was one of his security people and all the other garbage going around, but I'm starting to think the shot may have come from the side, and what we are told is the entry wound is actually the exit wound. So I think there's a lot of questions. Why I don't think this kid's the shooter. Where was he getting the training? Could you pull off a shot like that? People say, oh, if you're a deer hunter in the South, a lot of kids that age could do it. Okay, but can you do it under distress? Can you do it under distress? And surely if you had deer hunters in the South, kids that age that could do it, how many years were they deer hunting and having practice? When was this guy practicing? Where was he getting practice at a 200-yard range, right? Most of these gun ranges, they're not 200 yards, but any of them that are, where you can go out and do that kind of thing, I'm pretty sure most of them have cameras and they know who's coming in and out of their ranges. So someone will have to prove to me that this kid was proficient in shooting, had practiced a lot, could make that shot. But I think he's a patsy. And, reality is I don't know who did it. But I know after Kash Patel, after it came out today because of Senator Charles Grassley, that the FBI was tracking Turning Point USA and other conservative groups. I still think it's the red-green axis, with the government giving way for this, just like they gave Inside Job in a way for July 13th with Butler, Pennsylvania, and President Trump. So the point I guess I'm making is there are a lot of people probably involved in this, and there certainly seem to be groups that had foreknowledge with what they were saying about, be sure you watch tomorrow, something big's going to happen, blah, 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 Charlie Kirk event. But why are the Marxists using the LGBTQ groups? I've already mentioned that. These are their coalition of victims. But I think it goes to more than that. I think it also is an antithesis, right? Hegelian dialectic. Christians versus not just communists, but Christians versus people that are out there so morally that you couldn't have a more thesis and antithesis than conservative Christians versus communist queers. I mean, it's like, and I said, as I said with Rasmussen tonight, Mark Mitchell, I think the Civil War has already started. The left is already in the streets. They just keep trying to bring the right out. And the right's not willing to take the bait, thankfully, but they want us in the street, right? But why are we using queers? Now, again, that's their term, not mine. That used to be smear the queer. We used to play that game when we were kids, and that was considered a derogatory term. Now they celebrate that's what they call themselves. But many years ago, I don't know, 2007, 2008, I did a whole series on the LGBTQ, queer, homosexual, trans crowd inside not Nazi Germany. I remember watching a military documentary that talked about how many of the bodyguards around Adolf Hitler were known homosexuals who liked to share pictures of their boyfriends with each other. Okay, Hitler apparently liked the masculine queers. Erwin Lutzer wrote a book called Hitler's Cross. Everyone should read it. In the book, he talks about one of the people around Hitler, high up in the SS, that was known as a cross-dresser. Many people will say that the Night of the Long Knives, where a bunch of leaders were taken out, was to cover their sexual perversion and get rid of these guys because it was too much was about to come out. But why would you, and this is exactly what I said in 2008 in one of my radio shows, why would you choose to put homosexuals, queers, and I'm not labeling every homosexual, but why would you choose to put people like this in places like this? Because I think their conscience has been seared. And I think after you groom these kids, you groom them, you rape them, you molest them, you get them involved in these activities until you sever their conscience. Not only do you sever their conscience, you make them a part of a group. And the group is now where you find solace for any guilt that you might have until your conscience is fully seared. But you can't go back. You can't go back home. You can't return home. Physically, you might go home, but you can't return home to where you used to be with a relationship with your siblings, your parents, your grandparents. And these kids start to isolate themselves, stay in their bedroom, not want to come home, move out, not come back around, because they have experienced something that no longer causes them to have fellowship, harmony, relationship, and community with family. And if you don't think that's not part of a brainwashing operation, listen to what Erwin Lutzer writes in his excellent book, Hitler's Cross. Quote, Himmler, who's, of course, one of the leaders of the SS. Himmler was faced with the problem of how to take decent German young men and deaden their conscience so that they would be willing to perform ghastly deeds of cruelty. Both Hitler and Himmler believed that each of the SS troops had to perform some deed that violated his conscience and sense of decency. Only when they did what others found to be reprehensible would they break away from their old values. Their conscience had to be deadened through these acts of barbarism that would serve the dual purpose of cutting the recruit off from his past ties, his family, and his friends, and of bonding him to his new peers and his leader. The break would be so complete that he could never go back. An act of torture or murder would unite him with blood brothers who had crossed the line, felt the same numbness, and swore themselves to uphold the same cause. What are your thoughts on that?
Wow. Well, I mean, what insight and what testimony with what Erwin Lutzer is talking about there. But really, Brannon, when you look at the history of power and you see, even going back, I remember reading a lot about the Roman Empire and how that was such a part of the upper leadership of the Roman Empire, was the idea of having the homosexuals, having anybody that was, what we now are, calling, they're calling queer. It goes back to, even think about in the Bible, even in the story of Jezebel, where she had around her eunuchs, right? And so when you think about trans, when you think about LGBTQ, when you think about those who are spiritually eunuchs, or those who've been altered, in the trans community, where they've actually physically been altered, they've physically cut off their body parts to be able to, quote, transition, that spiritual surrounding of these individuals, I think you're so right on, where their conscience is so seared. Now that opens the floodgates for any level of evil, and make them victims, and give them the platform as the media, as our government, as the educational system, the medical system, and even many churches have. Then now they become a force where they're empowered. And look at this group that you brought up in Salt Lake. The empowerment, in my opinion, and what I was telling you earlier on the radio, is the whatever research I could do. First of all, so much of their pages have been scrubbed of this group, whether on Instagram, on Facebook. The leader of this group that I mentioned to you is a trans individual who's pretending to be a woman. But there is some debate about whether she's from Iran or a, quote, Palestinian. Either way, I said to you earlier, I believe that these are foreign aided individuals. And didn't the group, Brannon, go again to Cuba and get training?
Yes, and we're going to play that video. Yep.
Yeah,
they sure did.
So you not only have the environment of our nation that is very much acting like Nazi Germany, where we have elevated these individuals into positions of power and authority. And my goodness, look at the last administration and look at the people that they were putting into places of authority who were, trans, queer.
And I'm a little concerned about Peter Thiel, for Pete's sake.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not too interested in seeing some of these people make it into high places and have control over us.
Besson, what's his name? The finance guy on Trump. He's a avowed homosexual, married to his husband. Who was the one that he had in his last administration that was national security? Grinnell, so you start seeing the surrounding of these people around the politics. I think spiritually, this is very much in the spirit of the Jezebel spirit. And I'm talking about in the sense of again, surrounding with neutered, surrounding with effeminate, surrounding with those who've had their conscience seared. We see this in so many different aspects of the Bible and in the aspects of world history.
And it used to be considered a mental problem in America.
Right.
And then we started, and they were a security risk, et cetera, and open to blackmail, and they weren't, you just couldn't do it. But now, there are no standards. And the Bible says if the foundations be destroyed, what can the righteous do? I want to go back to Hitler real quick in Germany.
Yes, sir.
Lutzer writes this. 2 years after Hitler's victory, the term unnatural was purged from the definition of homosexuality in the German criminal code. So all the people are saying, the homosexuals were all thrown into concentration camps. True, some were, but it was mostly the effeminate, okay, if you go back and research it. Even gay historian Jonathan Katz reports that though police repeatedly apprehended homosexual actors and artists engaged in sodomy, they were not to be arrested. It would have been strange indeed if the Nazis had singled out homosexuals for special persecution since the movement itself was rampant with various kinds of sexual perversion. Historian Samuel Igra states that Hitler's initial brown shirts began as an exclusive homosexual and bisexual organization. Hitler's personal secretary, Rudolf Hess, listen now, Hitler's personal secretary, Rudolf Hess, was a bisexual known in homosexual circles as Fräulein Anna. He was a cross-dresser. He was a trans. Homosexuality was rampant in Hitler's inner circle as well as in the SS as boys were rounded up from the Hitler Youth to participate in sexual orgies. Of course, Hitler railed against homosexuals just as he did occultists, though he himself was a dedicated Satanist. Erwin Lutzer, Hitler's Cross, everyone should read it. Now, the point I'm making is regimes that have gone after people, conservatives, Christians, capitalists, Jews, they like to apparently use people whose conscience has been seared or they have done things that is so against the natural order of God that they will coalesce around a community of like-minded people and then be used to do barbaric things. That's the point I'm making. And when you start taking queers, by their own admission, that's what they call themselves, and then you start training them and the communists hijack them, well, what do you think is going to happen when you have a bunch of people who are being desensitized, maybe all the way to their conscience being seared, as the Bible talks about, and then you start arming them and claiming that the people that are their oppressors are those that are speaking truth? No wonder they're going to start hunting and are now starting to hunt down Christians.
Yeah. And Brannon, not just speaking the truth, but now the narrative, they add to the narrative that those Christians or those conservatives are trying to kill you. And that's why one of the narratives is, right, oh, well, if you don't allow us to transition, we're going to commit suicide or we're going to harm ourselves. But really, the reality is they're the ones who are the fascists, the Marxists. They're the ones. And as you were talking, again, I was thinking about two things. One is any jihadist organization within Islam on the green side of the axis, they do the same thing to their people. They have to get them to the point where their conscience are seared. And those who don't have their conscience are seared, when they go into an area of, quote, battle to commit acts of jihad, to rape, pillage, kill, behead non-Muslims and or lukewarm Muslims, they are oftentimes drugged up. They're oftentimes high on speed, amphetamines, because that then numbs their conscience, right? Because either way, you got to either have a seared conscience or a numbed conscience in order to be able to carry out that type of an atrocity. And then that's number one. The second part of what the Islamic side does, going to what you said, is again, they also are using this disenfranchised, so-called victimized minority, i.e. the LGBTQ, to do their bidding. So you over and over and over again, we see the connection to this red-green access and it's not, we're not beating a dead horse. And you said earlier on radio, I thought it was really good. It's almost the red, green, and pink access now. I like what you said there, because it is truly, they're bringing them in. The problem is when Islam gets to the upper house, as I just read to you before we went on air, the city of Hamtramck, Michigan, which was the first Muslim majority city in America, one of the first things they did, their Muslim city council and their Muslim mayor, was to ban the pride flags, and a federal judge just upheld that ban. I guarantee you, if that was a, quote, Christian city council, there's no way federal judges would have upheld the ban to ban pride flags. But here is the part that concerns me, and that is, not only are these groups concerning, but there's two things that are happening. One, there's either, again, no oversight. So we have a completely incompetent FBI, Homeland Security, and
well, that's because they're too busy tracking on conservatives and moms at school board meetings and Kirk's organization, Charlie Kirk's organization, according to the breaking news today by U.S. Senator Grassley of Iowa. They're tracking Turning Point USA. Why they're not? They don't have time to track the queers that are armed. They don't have time to track the queers that are armed that are coming back from Cuba.
Cuba?
I mean, in fact,
the obvious?
for those who doubt this, here's the video. Here's the video of them talking about it. Listen, here we go.
The Belly of the Beast documentary that we had watched there, I think it was from this where it mentioned that while the students at Elam who came from Gaza were there to study medicine, that simultaneously they, just by virtue of being there, studied revolution. And I think that school really probably forms consciousness for a lot of people when they're there to just study how to help people. And of course, that makes sense. And I think that...
Hold on, Logan, that's not the right video. Doggone it. We'll have to edit
But
this.
hey, Brannon,
Yeah.
why you got that up? Because that was actually very telling.
We're going to edit this part, but okay.
Oh, sorry, okay. Do you want me to comment or no? You want to wait?
I'm trying to find the video I played earlier where they went into detail on where they went to Cuba. It didn't have the stupid music behind it. It was much better. Let me see if I can find it real quick. Did it? But that one was like 7 minutes long or longer.
It's on Benny Johnson's page. Well, no, there's one that says that she's talking about they went to Cuba, 90 miles from America, and they have in it a president.
I'm there now on Data Republicans page. Yeah, that's what I'm looking for. Where is it?
Benny Johnson.
Oh, Logan got it. Logan bookmark.
You got it? Yeah.
Okay, here we go, Logan. This is the one we'll drop in. Here we go. Thank you, Logan. Here we go. All right, here we go.
Hi, we're Armed Queers. My name's Connor.
My name is Ramia.
And we have just returned from the annual May Day Brigade that is put on by the National Network on Cuba. We are a member organization of the National Network on Cuba, and the May Day Brigade is annual brigade, as I said earlier, where we go to Cuba, we interact with people from a bunch of different countries, and most importantly, we learn from the Cuban people, and we go to the May Day March.
Yes. I think this trip of ours was so incredibly informative and educational, and I think what is incredible is that these brigades have been hosted for decades, right? They've been hosted since the 20th century, and it's really to ensure that US activists are building this kind of solidarity with the Cuban people, and essentially we're breaking that propaganda, breaking that barrier of information that the US is trying to hide from us about just how successful the revolution is, and also just how steadfast and passionate the Cuban people are in protecting the revolution.
Yeah, and I think that speaks to the dual purpose of our trip. Simultaneously, we were there in Cuba to learn of the successes of the revolution and bring it back home with us. But simultaneously, we also were bringing to Cuba stories of the hardships in the US and of the oppression we face here from our government. And I think that helped also teach the Cuban people about our situation. Often you would hear people surprised when people would say like, oh, we don't have free healthcare, or like our universities act this way, and people would be like, oh, that's just a foreign concept there in Cuba. And I think that kind of speaks to the overall culture there.
Totally. I think we had visited a school that was for children with different learning barriers, with different disabilities. And essentially this school was so comprehensive in the way that it taught the children who were attending. They had provided them meals, breakfast, lunch, dinner. They had provided them snacks. They essentially provided them every single activity that you can think of to help build their skills, from sewing to planting to music to dance. It was so incredible to see. And what was also surprising was that some of the children actually lived there. So some of the children who, because they had physical disability barriers, they weren't able to constantly travel back home into the school. They ended up staying there in dorms they had.
And also because of concerns with fuels, because the buses can't be driving to and fro their house every day.
Yes, which is one of the impacts of the blockade.
Yeah.
Okay, now, I don't know if these guys, or whatever they are so dumb to know that whenever Americans go to communist countries, they take them and show them things that are deliberately designed to make them believe that this is a utopia, This is a utopian society. Look how great it is, all right? They're not going to take you into the average home of a Cuban who is starving. They're not going to take you into the average doctor's practice that is, and I have heard firsthand from people about what medical care is like over there, okay? They're not going to take you to those places, okay? They're going to take you to the staged scenes. Now, whether those are schools that are set up for the communist elite or whether they were just fake schools they keep ready to go for when they bring people over and run them through their propaganda. The reality is these kids are too immature, too deceived to understand that China is, Cuba is not some utopian society. They're just ridiculously ignorant, brainwashed. I want to play a short video, Shahram, of my friend Ron Carlson. Ron passed away in June of 2011. And this was Ron speaking at one of my Worldview weekends. He was supposed to return to Cuba, I think, for what was it, his 6th trip. He didn't make it because he passed away. But I want you to hear Ron Carlson telling you what it's really like, not the fake Disney World the Cubans put on a show for silly, stupid, brainwashed Americans to see and come back and tell these false, fake stories. The real Cuba. Listen to Ron Carlson.
In June, in another month, I'll be going down to Cuba for the 7th time. I've been able to train over 3,000 Cuban pastors and church leaders over the last 8 years, all throughout the island of Cuba. And let me say, we need to be praying for our brothers and sisters in Cuba. I mean, Fidel and socialism has just destroyed Cuba. I mean, these people in America who think socialism is the answer, I tell them, move to Cuba. If you want to see what it's done. Do you know in Cuba, I was back there last May speaking also, for the 6th time. Do you know in Cuba right now, everybody's paid by the government. It doesn't matter whether you're a plumber, a teacher, a pastor, electrician, everybody is employed by the government. And everybody's equal, so everybody gets paid the same amount. And right now in Cuba, everybody gets paid $18 a month. That's what Cubans live on, $18 a month. And then they give you a ration card for 5 pounds of rice and 5 pounds of beans a month and a half a cup of cooking oil. Most Cubans, folks, right now are down to rice and beans once a day. Last year, the Cuban government outlawed beef. Anybody caught with beef is put in prison for a year. I mean, to show you how bizarre it is, here you got an island nation surrounded by an ocean full of fish with 11 million starving people, and nobody's allowed to fish. There are no fishing boats, no fishing fleets, nobody's allowed to fish. If anybody had a fishing boat, they'd go 90 miles to Key West. Nobody's allowed to fish. I mean, the whole system has been destroyed by socialism and communism. But in the midst of that, God is doing some incredible things today. I mean, the Church of Jesus Christ is growing like wildfire. I was in Gamacoy, Cuba, speaking. Over 3,000 people jammed in the church on Sunday morning. Another church in Bayamo I was in, over 2,500 people jammed in Sunday morning to hear the gospel. God's doing some incredible things. In fact, my book, Fast Facts and False Teachings, we have on the table outside, was the first Christian book allowed to be printed in Cuba since 1959. When I first went in 8 years ago, I was invited to speak to the 250 key pastors from 14 different denominations in Cuba. And they'd asked me to come in and speak for a week to them. And they had told me, you're not allowed to bring anything into Cuba. We're at most allowed 3 books. And I thought, Lord, I'd love to give them each a copy of my book in Spanish. It's in Spanish all over the Spanish-speaking world. And I thought, Lord, somehow I'd love to give them each a copy of my book. So I got 250 Spanish copies of my book on cults and world religions and Christian apologetics. And I went to Walmart, bought 2 big soft-sided suitcases, was able to get 125 copies of my book in each suitcase, checked it to Havana along with my suitcase of clothes. Well, I get to Havana, this old Russian carousel starts going.
All right, I'm going
around.
to stop it right there, but
And-
it's 11 minutes. You guys would love to hear more. It's in our vault. That's one of the benefits of being our vault. You can go back there and pull out our presentations by people like Ron Carlson, worldviewtube.com/vault. But notice what Cuba's really like, right? Not the Disneyland, fake, imaginary, stage setting, props, kind of like entering onto a sound stage in a fake Hollywood set that these queers said they went on in Cuba. That's the real Cuba you just heard from Ron Carlson.
Brannon, absolutely. And you probably don't know this. I don't know if I've ever told you, but I led 2 mission trips to Cuba.
I did not know that.
Yeah. So I attest to everything he said, 2003, 2004, because that was the last time that Americans can go in. And even then, when we went in under humanitarian conditions. We had to go in because we took medicine and we took things that were humanitarian. So first of all, we said earlier, to go to Cuba and come back and not be scrutinized by our government, that's what stinks to me. I was saying earlier, either incompetence or you have now complicity. You have a level of complicity within the deep state that they're turning an eye to this type of training. Number two, like you said, Christianity is illegal. Christians are persecuted. The level of poverty, most of the men are drunk during the day because they don't have jobs. Foreigners live high. The party leaders of the government live high. Everybody else suffers. So I can attest to that. But yet, and Brannon, it's the same on the green side of the axis. They want to glorify the red. They want to make communism, Marxism, socialism seem wonderful. The same thing they want to do with Islamic countries. Oh, go visit an Islamic country and see how wonderful and tolerant and peaceful they are. Yeah, go visit the Islamic countries that are strictly governed by Islamic law and see how not wonderful they are. So this is the lie that is being told, particularly to these young people. And going back to the video, again, this guy, the guy that thinks that he is a she, I said to you earlier, and I was looking into this, the fact that her social media is almost scrubbed, and the fact that they've been operating, there is a connection. I believe what it is that one parent is from Iran and one parent is so-called Palestinian. And that's why they were talking about Palestine. They were talking about the suffering of the Palestinians. So right there, what do you have? You have the red-green axis again. Right there, it proves the same thing. Same with the Annunciation shooter, right? Just a few weeks ago in Minneapolis. What did he have on his weapons or on his magazines? He was praising, mashallah, praising Allah. He was talking about this is for the suffering children. 6 million Jews wasn't enough. So you have the same spirit, the same hatred, the same narrative, and many of the so-called pro-Palestinian, pro-Hamas mob are these trans queer. Remember Queers for Palestine? How does that work? How does that work? It is they're the ones who are being played. These are sadly the useful idiots. But this individual, this guy that thinks she's a girl, I don't have hard evidence, but my instincts are telling me that she is an actual asset of the Iranian regime in America doing this. The Muslim countries, the Chinese, they have no. How many connections can we make from China to Black Lives Matter? Remember that?
Yep.
So they have no problem sowing the discord in this country using these pawns that their conscience are seared for their bidding. I'll stop there.
And look at this headline you sent me today. This is a poster out there. The revolution will not be voted in. Join armed queers. Okay. It says get organized and educated with fellow Marxists. Okay. Now again, when you go to their own page or this article and you look at their stuff, queer resistance with a hammer and sickle. With a hammer and sickle. So we've got a real problem here, and people need to talk about it in the context of communism and them creating a coalition of victims and that say the source of all suffering and oppression are the Christians and the capitalists. And isn't that what Karl Marx said? My object in life is to dethrone God and destroy capitalism. And his people are saying capitalism, Christianity, those are the big enemies. And then why are they choosing people like this? I think they're easily manipulated. Many of them have been abused. And some of them, I think, have had their conscience seared. So they make a great army. They make great cannon fodder for the revolution, so-called. And I do think the Civil War started. I just think the left cannot entice the right into the street, but I think that's what they want, and hopefully people won't take the bait. 2 more items before we let you go tonight. One of them is Pam Bondi. Pam Bondi, the Attorney General, came out and said this. This is very, very troubling. Listen.
There's free speech, and then there's hate speech. And there is no place, especially now, especially after what happened to Charlie, in our society.
Do you see more law enforcement going after these groups who are using hate speech and putting cuffs on people so we show them that some action is better than no action?
We will absolutely target you, go after you, if you are targeting anyone with hate speech, anything. And that's across the aisle.
Okay. Wow. Now, this is very dangerous because there's one thing to make a terroristic threat. Okay, folks, listen clearly. Don't hear what you want to hear. Hear what I'm saying. Yeah. Terroristic threats are already against the law. Okay?
Correct.
A gunman from Saudi Arabia came into our event, My Worldview Weekend, in April of 2017 that Shahram was speaking for with me. While I was speaking, that guy came in. My security that I hired privately noticed him filming, went up to him. He was armed, took him out. He made 2 videos brandishing 5 weapons, 2 semi-automatics, and what he said was 1,200 rounds of ammunition, threatening Shahram and I. He did 7 months in federal prison. Now, terroristic threats are already against the law. But to say that we're going to target people that are using hate speech, who defines hate speech? Okay, This is a very slippery slope. And this is what I warned about in my book in 2016, The Coming Religious Reich, where the former Prime Minister of Great Britain, Tony Blair, wanted hate crime laws that would prosecute people that denied the Holocaust. The rabbis came out and said, hey, we don't like Holocaust deniers, but we don't want to see them prosecuted because that is a slippery slope. And now you're going to start prosecuting us for the things that we publicly believe and profess. We cannot trash free speech, okay? So they didn't even want to see the Holocaust deniers prosecuted. No, let's just debate them. Let's use facts. So when you have the Attorney General and the Trump administration talking like this, that's very dangerous. I want you to address that, and then I'm going to move to this attack of Israel, saying Israel's the one that killed Charlie. I want to address that with some facts from, I think, what is one of Charlie's own producers, and the man who's been dragged into it, he's made a statement as well. But address this by Pam Bondi, please.
100% agree with you. Deeply, deeply, deeply troubling. Number one, all you got to do, Brannon, is look at the way that has been used in Western Europe, in France, in the UK, in Germany, in Sweden, the way in Austria, the way they have used, quote, hate speech laws is been to protect now Islam and the ones who are doing the killing, doing all of the hate, and those who then try to warn about it, patriots, conservatives, those who are against the Islamization of Western Europe, they're the ones who are being jailed, even for speech. This is so problematic, and I warned people about this back in May when the president signed the executive order for the so-called Religious Liberty Commission, which, remember, he put 2 Muslims on, and Catholics and Jewish rabbis. So can I ask you a question, Brandon? When you're listening to that, Pam Bondi says of any group, so isn't all of my talks or a lot of your talks, they would easily be deemed as hate speech because we are speaking out against ideology, in my case, predominantly against Islam. Well, that's targeting a people group. So here I am, Miss Bondi, here I am. I guess come arrest me. So this is deeply, deeply
Well, even Charlie
troubling.
Kirk knew it was. He said hate speech does not exist legally in America. There's ugly speech, there's gross speech, there's evil speech, and all of it is protected by the First Amendment. Keep America free. Charlie Kirk would not be in favor of free speech. You know what really distresses me? are the number of people that are, I'm afraid, going to hijack Charlie Kirk's name in order to push something that he himself would be against. That's very concerning to me.
Agreed.
Let me move to this. Candace Owen. Colin Rogg put out last night, and you can watch the video of Candace. Candace claims threats were made to Charlie Kirk during an intense intervention with Bill Ackman in the Hamptons weeks ago. Owens claims Kirk was having a change of heart on Israel before his death and says he was contacted by Bibi Netanyahu. Quote, I know that Charlie was offered a ton of money in this moment and a ton of money, end quote. Ackman has denied it. Yeah, he's denied it. In fact, we have his tweet where he's denying it. Let me see if I can find it real quick. Here it is. All right, here's Bill Ackman himself. This afternoon, at Real Candace Owen slandered me by accusing me of staging an intervention with Charlie Kirk in which threats were made with respect to his supposed evolving stance on Israel at an event I hosted in the Hamptons. Candace also intimated that I blackmailed Charlie. On the show, Candace said she'd be very happy for me to dispute this narrative. While it pains me to drive more traffic to her program, I'm responding here to clear my name. It saddens me that we live in a society where social media influencers seek to monetize the tragic death of Charlie Kirk. For the record, at no time have I ever threatened Charlie Kirk, Turning Point, or anyone associated with him. I have never blackmailed anyone, let alone Charlie Kirk. I've never offered Charlie or Turning Point any money in an attempt to influence Charlie's opinion or anything. In fact, my interactions with Charlie Kirk have been extremely cordial, albeit limited, regretfully so, as I was very impressed by him and his work, and I will sadly never see him again. In an effort to clear the record, I share the following. I followed Charlie Kirk for some time and greatly admired him. While I did agree with Charlie on every issue, I had enormous respect for his intelligence, vast knowledge about religion, and his willingness to take on all corners in open mic sessions, all comers, et cetera, et cetera. It's a rather long post. I won't read it all, but he's saying this is absolutely ridiculous. Then we have, I think, what is his producer. Logan, is Andrew Colvett his producer? That's his producer? Now he's hosting the show? Okay. He's hosting the show, and he was a sit-in. He said, quote, I've been asked about the Bill Ackman event more than a few times now, so I asked our staff who was traveling with Charlie Kirk to find out what's true and what's not. His team was with him 100% of the time when he wasn't in his hotel room. Here's what they told me. Quote, Bill never yelled at Charlie, never pressed him on Bibi, never gave him a list of Charlie's offenses against Israel, end quote. There was concern raised about having Tucker at SAS. We don't believe this came from Bill. And Charlie's reply was, quote, honestly, people telling me not to have Tucker makes me want to have Tucker, and I'm going back to lock him in for Amerifest too, end quote. Charlie personally told me he had a very cordial relationship with Bill, and the event was productive. Those are the facts. Now we have another tweet, Logan, that has been put out by this gentleman. Who's this gentleman? This is a guy that was supposedly at the event with Bill Ackman and Charlie Kirk. He said, yes, dozens of influencers, including myself, were invited to an event by Charlie and his team, not by Bill Ackman. Charlie wanted to get to know rising conservative voices and where we stood on various issues. Two, the subject matters were primarily about the following topics: Islam's growing presence in the West, marriage/dating, Mandandi, right-wing infighting, the economy, and various narratives regarding Israel. Three, Charlie wanted to see us respectfully debate him and each other. There was a range of views there on every topic. He wanted to learn our perspective and analyze our debating skills from an objective point of view. He goes on to talk about Bill and Charlie never debated or argued. I don't know where that narrative came from. If it happened, it certainly wasn't around any of us. Bill mostly spoke about marriage and economics, then chilled with us. Five, I'm not going to pretend I know every thought of Charlie, but he very much stood with Israel. His frustrations expressed during the Hamptons event were that many people debated the topic emotionally rather than logically. Mind you, this was a small portion of the event. And it goes on from there. So this seems to be a completely made-up narrative, but yet, boy, the internet is burning up with this and implying that somehow the Israeli government killed Charlie Kirk or had a hand in it. You want to speak to this?
Well, Brannon, this goes back to what I said to you earlier on radio today, that this is why I think that, again, this axis is at play here. How much of Candace Owens' influence is coming from Qatar? How much of Candace Owens' influence and thoughts is coming from her conversion to Catholicism and being influenced by replacement theology? And how much of it is just now getting spiritually unclean and demonic because of this just vile hatred where it's just Jews, 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 Jews all the time. And now it's the fact that the Jews killed Charlie Kirk. So I'm not surprised by this. What I am surprised is how many people are buying into it and going along with this narrative. I guess it shows you where we're at, where, as we've said multiple times, you've said it, I've said it, we do not blanketly endorse the Israeli government. We're standing on the word of God. We believe God's word, God's promises, their return to the land, the rebirth of the nation, their sovereignty, their right to self-defense, their right to pieces of land like Gaza and Judea and Samaria, and also the fact that we recognize that our Messiah is Jewish and that that's our heritage, spiritually speaking. But I think that this is the foreign influence once again trying to come against Christians, the true stance of God in this hour. And now they've sullied Charlie Kirk's name because, you know, the guy can't defend himself. He can't come out. And by the way, 2 weeks ago, Brandon, 2 weeks ago, I was critical of Charlie Kirk. I said it on my own show. Why do you keep platforming Candace Owens? Why do you keep platforming Tucker Carlson? He was committed to doing it. That's his prerogative. But it was also my prerogative to say these individuals have shown that they are being foreign influenced. I believe that this is money influence from foreign governments, including the Qataris, into these mouthpieces. But Candace's problem is far deeper than that. And it's just, it's spiritually vile. And it's very dangerous because it's further eroding what already is tenuous support of Israel among Christians.
Indeed. Shahram Hadian, tilministry.com, tilministry.com. He's also carried here on Saturday and Sundays at worldviewtube.com. We produce and sponsor his show here at worldviewtube.com. As always, Shahram, thank you for your willingness to dig in and bring us analysis that we're really not going to get from a lot of other places. So thank you for taking part in that tonight.
Thank you, Brandon, for being willing to cover this stuff. Like you said, very few places are going to cover this. So thank you for doing what you're doing. And it's always a privilege. Thank you so much.
It's a team effort. And folks, if you do appreciate what we're doing, we need your support now more than ever. Worldviewfoundation.com, worldviewfoundation.com. Please go there and help us continue to push out Christian worldview programming. It is tax deductible. We are a church, and it is automatically tax deductible under the IRS rules. Go look that up. If you make a contribution, we will send you a tax receipt the first week of every February. That's what we endeavor to do. And so you can make a contribution at worldviewfoundation.com. I do host a church service every Sunday night, have for years. As you know, I'm teaching through the book of Revelation. I just finished Revelation chapter 20 Sunday night, on to 21 coming up very soon. By the way, if you'd like to watch my entire series on Revelation, you can go now to lastdaysstudy.com, lastdaysstudy.com. I got that right, Logan? Lastdaysstudy.com. All 48 lessons are there. Very soon, I have a commentary coming out on the book of Revelation, a verse-by-verse commentary on the book of Revelation. It'll also have study notes, so you can use this as a study guide while you watch the series. So you can do it as an individual or a family, a Christian school, homeschool co-op, or maybe at your work or neighborhood. You can study the book of Revelation verse by verse in layman terms. That commentary will be out very, very soon as I finish up here in the next few weeks with chapter 21 and chapter 22. We're already working on the commentary and study guide now. So that'll be out. That's Sunday nights, 8 p.m. Central, 9 Eastern, our Sunday night church service brought to you by our church, worldviewfoundation.com. Thank you for your contribution now at worldviewfoundation.com. We are looking for more regular monthly contributors. Would you please consider doing that, becoming a monthly contributor? You can set up an automatic account and do that through either PayPal or your credit card there at worldviewfoundation.com. You'll also find our mailing address there if you prefer to support us through the mail. We'll be right back after this very short break. Anni Cyrus up next. Hello, I'm Brannon Howse. I want to thank you for all your support at wvwfoundation.com. that helps make possible pushing out 24/7 content for free. Without your support, we'd have to put it all behind a paywall. But thanks to you and your support through our foundation, we're able to push it out for free as a broadcast service and broadcast ministry of WVW Foundation. Please consider going there and setting up an automatic monthly contribution, or go there and make an occasional contribution. If you prefer to support us through the mail, you'll find our mailing address there at wvwfoundation.com. You can also call and make your contribution over the phone by calling 901-825-0652. That's 901-825-0652. Again, all these details are available at wvwfoundation.com. Thank you for your support as we try to help people around the world understand the times through the lens of a Christian worldview. Joining me now is Anni Cyrus. She has a brand new article out, Utah Bomb Plot, Muslims, Anti-Trump, and a Motive called Unknown. We reported on this very briefly tonight during the Worldview Report newscast, but Anni has a whole Substack on it at liveuptofreedom.substack.com, liveuptofreedom.substack.com. She joins us now. Anni, welcome back. This story really has not gotten a whole lot of traction. Tell us about it, will you please?
Yes, it did not get, well, I guess if the bomb doesn't go off, nobody hears the blow and nobody needs to talk about it. Utah. On Friday, September 13th, there was a bomb found under the Fox 13, which is a local Utah Fox News channel, van. It has been now confirmed by FBI that it was lit, but it did not go off. Basically, it malfunctioned and it didn't go off. On the 14th, 2 men were arrested. Well, technically, night of Saturday at 1 a.m., so it'd be considered on the 14th. 2 men were arrested and booked and are now facing charges, 5 charges. One of them is a 58-year-old Pakistani-born American citizen, Adib Nasser. And the other one is a 31-year-old Utah-born U.S. citizen named Adil Nasser. Most of the places you look, you're going to see 2 Utah men were arrested. That's all. But it didn't take me too long to realize, oh, Adib and Adil are father and son. The name, age gap, and also the fact that they both lived in the same address and they were both arrested on the same address, father and son. The way I phrased it, actually, Brannon, was we had a Pakistani-born U.S. citizen and then a American-born Pakistani-raised son who followed the footsteps of the father. After the local Utah FBI got a search warrant, went to the address right outside. The screenshots are on my Substack for anyone who needs to look at them. So is the video. But you see 2 very alarming banners. Well, 3, but 2 very alarming. Number 1, there's a banner that says, "Let's go taco." The second one is on color black. It says, and with the white writing says, "Is he dead yet?" I am positive that since your audience is very well educated, they literally just connected the claim of mine saying anti-Trump. Now, there was also an American flag on a flagpole in front, hanging upside down. I didn't literally pick on that because these 2 were a bigger evidence, if you ask me. So the name, the background of Pakistani, and the flags is where I came to conclusion that they're Muslim and they're anti-Trump. I will very proudly take credit. That seems like, Brannon, I am the only reporter out there who had the guts to name these 2 exact phrases. You don't find this in any other reporting. Why? I don't know. I promise to stay calm when I come on your show. It's just been. Also, they found weapons, all sort of weapons in the house, drugs, few what they described as material for arson, and also 2 hooks, bombs, which apparently the father claimed it's real, so they evacuated the entire neighborhood, and then the bomb squad basically said they're not. They were dummies. That was discovered from the house. Now, red flags are there, but few reasons I am very upset with this. One, as you mentioned, it is not getting reports. There are no updates. When you go to Utah FBI website, the last update on the website belongs to the $100,000 reward for anyone who helps capture Charlie Kirk's assassination. Nothing. Not even a line of, hey, there was a terrorist Islamic attack in Utah and by grace of God, bomb didn't blow up. Nothing has been mentioned. As you can tell, the governor of Utah, who was very free apparently to constantly appear on camera back to back, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday early afternoon, has not even addressed this. And I do believe, yes, the bomb didn't go off, but Brannon, don't you think at least minimum people of Utah deserve to know this just happened in their state, in their area? Forget about the entire nation.
Mm-hmm.
But we cover it up. Now, there are many people who have commented or sent me messages when I wrote the Substack with different reasons of why this is not getting attention. But I don't think there is any reason or even an excuse behind this being covered up. At this point, it's cover up. Now, one thing on my Substack that has been confirmed, both father and son were restricted persons. For your audience who may not know this, when you have the status of a restricted person, you are not allowed to have any kind of weapon, any kind. And the way you get this status, I have the list here. It's either a domestic violence protective order or a drug-related case, user of controlled substance cannot legally possess firearm, or prior violent criminal history leading to a standing probation. Both father and son are restricted persons. Now, one, how did we fail so badly that a restricted person, two restricted persons had drugs, weapons, weapon of mass destruction, and material for arson in their house? Like, how far things gone wrong in Utah that they managed to do this? And then I did some digging. There's an update today I added where I did as much as digging, made as many phone calls as I could. And publicly, the son, Adil, has no record or conviction whatsoever, Brannon. None. The father has a misdemeanor of, I think, a DUI and another time of possession. None of those would earn you person of interest. Restricted person status. None of them. So the next question I have added today is, was FBI watching them? Is that why they were restricted person? Or did they seal conviction of father and son in a related case that could have earned them that status? I don't have the answer, especially because Utah Sheriff Department is not cooperating with me at all. When I reached out to request their mugshots and the original booking record, they threw some legal code of Utah at me, which again, it is included. The screenshot of their explanation is in the Substack, saying that under Utah law, unless the person is convicted or a fugitive, we don't have to release the mugshot. But then the very state with the same code immediately released the booking mugshot of Tyler Robinson, didn't they? We were on air on your show when you pulled it up.
They sure did.
So why is it, I am not defending Tyler Robinson. I'm just drawing a parallel here. Why is it that when it's a young 22-year-old white American, regardless of left, right, transgender or not, immediately release a picture? But if it's the Pakistani Muslim son and father, we protect their faces. I want to know that.
Those are all excellent questions. Let me have you comment real quick before we conclude tonight. We have the red-green axis. Tonight I've added pink. The red, green, and pink axis. Because, boy, they are just militarizing the queers. Queer resistance, the hammer, the sickle, talking about their goals, their 6 principles, which include really nothing but the Communist Manifesto. What do you make of my new warning of the red, green, and pink axis?
I love it. What is it they say? What think alike? Great minds think alike?
Mm-hmm.
Because this is the first time I'm announcing this. I haven't even said it on my own show yet. I just started writing a book, Brannon. And the title, close enough to yours, it's actually, I'm going to talk about black-green axis. Some people in America, older people, might know exactly what I'm talking about because the king of Iran, King Pahlavi, 3 or 4 months before he was toppled, he talked about the black-green axis to an American interviewer, warning that as Persia is challenged by black-green axis, we need the West to back us up before it leaks into the Western countries. And now, 50 years later, I have the honor to complete his warning in a book. It does include the pink in the black, yes. So you are spot on.
Wow. liveuptofreedom.substack.com is our website with this new article on these characters there in Utah bomb plot, Muslims anti-Trump, and motive called unknown. liveuptofreedom.substack.com.
And if I could just give a note, you may want to bookmark this. I am updating it daily. Instead of writing a new piece, you'll see the updates in italic, all bold. So bookmark it, because every day as I make calls and get more paperwork on it, I'll update this specific Substack.
Excellent. Thank you, Annie. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you, Brannon.
All right, guys, a lot tonight, right? And we're putting in so many hours each and every day and shoving it all out for free. So thank you for your support. But don't you think we should have more people watching the broadcast, learning the things that we are all learning together? Reason, logic, context, asking questions, interviewing cutting-edge guests, bringing in the worldview, the philosophies, the ideas, the Christian worldview. Hey, if you appreciate what we're doing, would you please consider going to worldviewstore.com right now and getting your pack of business cards? They're absolutely free. And pass them out. They're absolutely free. Shipping and everything, free of charge. Pass them out to your family and your friends. Let them know about the free business cards by giving them one. And whenever I bring out the business cards, look who comes around. You really are obsessed with these business cards, aren't you? So get a pack and send them out to your family and friends, or give them to the waiter or waitress, or to the police officer in your town, the sheriff in your town. Maybe to the local dog kennel, because apparently dogs love our business cards. Worldviewstore.com. Worldviewstore.com. What is it about these things, huh? You just love the truth that much, is it? You have some you want to pass out around town, or what? Worldviewstore.com. Get your pack of 20 business cards right away at worldviewstore.com. Worldviewstore.com. Apparently, Dolly approved. She is a big fan of these business cards. They are double-sided, and you can pass them out to your family and friends and people you don't even know, because there are a lot of folks that I think want to know about this. By the way, I did the interview with Judge Joe Brown Friday night, and in less than 24 hours, how many people have watched that one on YouTube, Logan? 34,000+ in 24 hours, right? At one point, Logan said in an hour, it went from 20,000 to 27,000. 20,000, 27,000 in 1 hour this morning. An hour and a half period. And now we're over 34,000. I think there's a lot of folks in Memphis watching this, and I think there are people passing this around wanting an investigation into possible massive political corruption in the Memphis, Tennessee area. We'll see what that happens, what that's all about. But that's going viral. Yep. We're covering all kinds of stuff, folks, but we do need your support. So roll the music. Let's call it a night. Please consider going to worldviewfoundation.com, making a contribution right now. Don't forget about organizations like ours. There's a lot of great organizations out there, folks, but how many of them are pushing out 24-hour-a-day programming absolutely free? Did you know, by the way, that we don't charge any of our hosts. We have to pay. I have to pay all the guys in the control room. So every show you see, that host doesn't pay for the airtime. They do not pay for the television production. They're getting it all for free. So folks, if you appreciate the fact that we're putting so much money into helping push other people's messages out, we need your support. We need it now. Please go there now. Will you? Worldviewfoundation.com. Thank you. May God save America. Take care.
Faith, spiritual values, moral issues, government, economy, education, work, responsibility. What we think about these depends on our worldview. Now, VCY America presents Worldview Radio with Brannon Howse.
And welcome to the broadcast on this September 16th, 2025. September 16th, 2025. I'm going to be joined by Shahram Hadian here in just one moment. There is so much in the news today that is breaking, and we just got breaking news from U.S. Senator Charles Grassley of Iowa that a whistleblower detailed Arctic Frost, a program inside the FBI to target conservative Christian organizations and those tied to political organizations such as the Republican Party, et cetera, et cetera. And specifically, Charlie Kirk's Turning Point USA was being, shall we say, targeted by the FBI. Folks, we have way more questions than we have answers. And while many people are debating whether Charlie Kirk was wearing a bulletproof vest or not, I don't think he was, based on the fact, have you ever worn one of those? I have. And many of you in the audience that have been in law enforcement, you have as well. And all of the turning and twisting while he was throwing hats, leaning forward, his shirt stretched. I see no indication he was wearing a bulletproof vest, but I'm willing to be proven wrong. I certainly cannot see proof he was wearing one with a plate, a metal plate in it. But that goes on. Everyone arguing online whether he was wearing one or not. And now they, of course, are asking legitimate questions. Did the shot come from the front, or was that exit wound on the neck what we're really seeing, an exit, as it is an exit wound? These are all questions that are fair, but why do the American people have to ask them? Because they don't trust their government. Why don't they trust their government? Because we've known pretty much since they blew the head off of President Kennedy in '63, the government is, well, a shadow government. I will play tonight on Brannon Howse Live audio of Glenn Beck talking about the day he questioned the George W. Bush administration and the war in the Middle East by the George W. Bush administration. His phone rang and he was summoned to the Oval Office the next morning by apparently a very angry George W. Bush, who proceeded to use a lot of four-letter words, so said Glenn Beck. And he was advised that, hey, don't worry about who comes before me. They'll be taking their orders from the same people I take my orders from. Wow. Well, I'm going to get into that tonight with Mark Mitchell of Rasmussen, because I don't think President Trump's in charge of this government. I don't think he's in charge of a lot of it. I don't think Kash Patel's even in charge of the FBI. I think there's a shadow government. And yet here we have today, it has to come from a U.S. senator. Why did this not come from Dan Bongino? Why did this not come from Kash Patel? Why does this have to come out in a hearing from Senator Charles Grassley? Thank you, Senator Charles Grassley of Iowa. But that our FBI was targeting conservative groups. Oh, wait a minute. You mean they weren't targeting the Islamists? No, they were holding interfaith dialogue with them, giving them the top FBI Directors Award, at least in the Mueller and Comey FBIs, but targeting Christians, conservatives.